teacher causes me to have panic attacks and she ends up getting fired. So when I was in my final year of primary school, my teacher kept punishing me over and over for silly little things, such as a singular spelling mistake in a 3-page piece of work, bearing in mind I'm around the age of 11. In my school, we had a traffic light system. You had your name on a green circle on the wall, and if you misbehaved, your name would move down to either the orange or red circle, depending on how bad you'd been, e.g. red for starting a fight in the playground. Let me know in the comments, what did you have at primary school? Or elementary school, whatever you guys call it. We had golden time, which was like playtime once a week, but if you did something bad in that week, you'd lose golden time. So you'd have to just not do anything. I think you'd have to sit with a teacher while everyone else was playing. It was like 20 minutes long. And I remember I once lost it 4 times, back to back to back to back, and then had to speak to the head teacher about it. And she was like, why are you being so disruptive? And I was like, I don't know. Let's carry on with the story. For my entire time in primary school, I'd never been moved down from the green circle until I went into this teacher's class. When I made spelling mistakes, I'd be moved to the red circle immediately, but the worst part was it didn't happen to anybody else in my class. I know this because my friends would tell me if they made mistakes in their work. This didn't happen once or twice, it happened over and over again until I'd come home every day having been on the red circle. That is just bullying. Now, halfway through the year, my school started using a program called dojos, meaning our parents could then see what we did wrong and how many times. You'd either get a red or a green point, and they would specify why you got them. Guess who kept getting red points for spelling every day? If you guessed me, you'd be right. We would even have to go up to an interactive board and have to put these on ourselves. This was the beginning of my panic attacks. Every time we'd have to do any kind of writing task, even getting me to beg my mum not to make me go in. It felt like public humiliation, and I panicked about getting anything wrong, even if I was trying my hardest, and also not getting much wrong at all compared to other students, right? Or just in general. Yeah, that's horrible. As soon as the begging not to go in started, as well as some other stuff that would make for other stories about this teacher, my mum went to the head teacher of the school and showed her how many red points I was getting, and explained how I begged not to be there. The head teacher had access to look at if she was giving any other students as many points as me, and found that she wasn't. It wasn't even close. I was told it was too late in the year to move teachers though. Still over a quarter of the year left, but we couldn't be bothered to argue. This would not be the last time my mum would complain. There were some things that were put in place for me, and these are some of them. I'd be taken out of classes to help me deal with my anxiety, and at the end of every day, I would have to write down things that had happened in a journal, which would be seen by my teacher, the head teacher, and would eventually be used as proof not to rehire my teacher. It sounds like a lot. That's a lot of an onus on you, rather than the head teacher just saying, okay, it's clear what's happening here. And yes, of course you can move classes. Like, that would be the better pastoral thing to do. Anyway, one thing about the teachers at my school was every year their contract had to be renewed. And obviously this was a last straw with this teacher, and her contract was definitely not renewed. There were very few reasons why they could be fired within the year. At the end of the year, the teacher would announce she was leaving the school along with a few other teachers. Only a few students got her a card, and it was very obvious that it was forced on them by their parents. Compared to other leaving teachers, it was very obvious how unliked she was. Well, that's not surprising, but I think this goes above that. This isn't like a, oh, you're fired. This is like, it's got to be some form of like child abuse or something. Like, why does she hate you? I don't know. It's crazy. To be fair, like, I actually remember I had one teacher who I did feel like they picked on me more than other kids. Like, if we were all doing something bad, then I felt like I would get picked on the most. Maybe that was because I was quite a loud mouth, so I had a bit of a reputation. This is not in like a all cocky way. Like, it's not good to have a reputation like that in school, obviously. I think it's probably just the truth. But anyway, I felt slightly wronged by this teacher. Nonetheless, I never actually got any revenge on them, whereas OP got some great revenge on this teacher, I suppose. Although, like, where's the actual revenge here, apart from you just telling your parents, or like breaking down in front of your mum, begging you not to go to school, and her getting involved. That's not really like revenge, it's just fair. It's not really traumatizing your teacher back, her getting fired, because she deserved it. Anyway, if you're a transphobe saying ridiculous things, don't be surprised to get ridiculous questions. An old friend of family came over. I say old because we don't like him at all anymore, and we've been no contact for a while. Anyway, he popped in unexpectedly, saying he was sorry for the argument that led to the fallout. We weren't very happy to see him, but we politely invited him in for some tea. Well, he hadn't changed at all, and he soon started talking about random subjects nobody else had mentioned. He's a rabid religious homophobe, transphobe, etc., and was going on and on about it in a traumatizing way. We were too polite to kick him out, but we also wanted to get him to shut up without blowing a top ourselves. I was out, my parents didn't want to deal with him, so it was my sister who ended up conversing with him. This friend works in a pet store. "You won't believe," he raged, "how many trans people I see in the pet store. It's just terrible." My sister faked shock and incredulity. "What could they be doing to the dogs?" she gasped in mock indignation. He stuttered for a moment, suddenly realizing how ridiculous he sounded. Then he moved on to another path of conversation. "God made two genders, and there are only two genders. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman. Don't defile God's wondrous creation." With a sweet smile, my sister replied, "Yes, God is truly wondrous. Did you know clownfish can change sexes under certain conditions? It's like a miracle." The friend froze mid-anti-trans tirade. He wasn't brazen enough to contend with scientific fact, trapping him a paradox. If trans people were wrong because they went against God, how come God made trans fish? I know that's oversimplified and inaccurate, but that's probably what he was thinking. You could see his precious propaganda crumbling around him. Quickly, he brought up his studies in Hebrew, and then he left shortly after. My sister told all of this to me while laughing. Yeah, so apparently intersex people also don't exist then. I've never actually heard of that argument, the clownfish argument. Like, yeah, I agree with OP, it's obviously oversimplified, but in a one-liner to just destroy a transphobe, I think it works pretty well. And again, I know it doesn't make complete sense, but it's clearly worked here. And I feel like in future, not that I've ever met a transphobic person, to be fair, at least one that's openly trans to me, but I'm going to try this and see if it works. Young guy kept making fun of my age at a party. I was in my 40s at the time of this story. I'm at a house party with mixed ages. Some people I knew before, but most are new to me. A guy in his 20s asked me how old I was, and I told him. So he started making fun of my age. He kept going on and on and on about my age for quite some time, mocking me for being old, calling me decrepit, etc. Whenever he saw me, he'd be like, "Hey, old man Winter," and other imaginative barbs like that. At one point, we're out in the backyard, about 10 to 15 people milling about, and the Joker comes out with a friend. He spots me and loudly starts mocking me and my age again. "Well, getting old does suck," I replied, "but with any luck, it won't happen to you." He replied, "Dang right it won't." A moment passed, and then one of his other friends suddenly started laughing. "Dude, he burned you so bad you actually agreed with him." It took several minutes for the second guy to explain the burn to the victim. Okay, so he's an idiot as well. I mean, that took me literally an instant second to understand. He wants you to die, or at least hopes you do. Wow. How dumb can you be to be like, "Yeah, I hope I die before I'm old as well," and then be like, "Oh, I see what he was saying." Very good comeback. And it actually reminds me of when I was at a festival with some friends, and there was an older guy there that we got talking to because he looked exactly like one of my mates. And I sort of remember us asking him, we weren't taking the mick at all, but I remember asking him like how old he was because he was older. He didn't want to answer the question. And at the time I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. Why can't you just say how old you are? Like we weren't taking the mick. We were just genuinely curious. But I do get it now. Like he sort of said, well, who cares how old I am? Age isn't important. I'm here to enjoy myself. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. And that stuck with me. That was last summer. So yeah, I wasn't taking the mick out of him. To be completely clear, I was just genuinely curious. I think the point is that just because someone is older doesn't really matter at all. And we're all going to get old at some point. Maybe not this guy, because if you're as dumb as this guy is, then you probably will die before you get old. But the rest of us, yeah. I followed my father's advice and I lawyered up against him. Disclaimer, I refer to my father as my abuser. He doesn't deserve the paternal title. I was 19 years old, freshly out of grammar school and looking forward to going to a university abroad. By then, my parents were divorced for a year, and I'd been receiving child support payments from my abuser. They were not much, around £75 a month in the mid-2010s, but that's what my parents agreed on during the divorce, and it's not like I had any expenses at that time. £75 a month, I mean, that is like criminally low. Wow. How can that be child support payment? But whatever. But I was leaving the country to study abroad. I knew that the destination country was more expensive than my home country, and so I asked my abuser to discuss increasing the payments for the duration of my studies, and he agreed. Fast forward a couple of weeks, my abuser messaged me one evening, accusing me of manipulating an old lady to tell the neighbours secrets and paint my abuser in a bad light. Now this is what actually happened. My mum was walking our dogs and randomly met the neighbour's mother. She asked her a few questions about the living situation between my abuser and the neighbour, his lover that he cheated on mum with for 6+ years, to check just how much my abuser was lying to us. Now, I wasn't there for this, I didn't ask my mum to do this, and I only learned about this later when my mum told me what she found out. But according to my abuser, I was the master manipulator. It takes one to know one, eh? I responded that it's difficult to trust him when he lied to us for years. He got greatly offended and demanded an apology. I refused. His final ultimatum was that if I didn't apologise within 24 hours, he would cancel the increased child support payments and I would need to get a lawyer to get him to pay. So I did. I spoke to a lawyer and I gave him the power of attorney to act on my behalf. I wanted to take it to court, but the lawyer wanted to try sending a letter to arrange a meeting before doing that. Long story short, my abuser, who was usually a narcissistic, self-assured and self-proclaimed main character who wasn't afraid of picking up literal fights, suddenly became the most docile creature in the meeting room and agreed on the increased payments almost immediately. He probably knew that what we were asking was way less than what the court would have demanded. He ended up paying for the duration of my studies and a little bit after until I got a job. My only regret is that I never saw his face when he received the summons letter from my lawyer. And no, I still haven't apologised. Well, that is good and all. However, I do feel like if you could have got more money out of him, then you should have done anyway. You shouldn't have agreed out of court. You should have been like, no, I'm getting the maximum from my abuser. I know it would have been more arduous and it would have taken time and it wasn't a guarantee, but I just feel like if there was more money to be made from this guy, why not try and make it? I spent 15 years low-key getting revenge on my high school bully, and I might have helped end his marriage. I never planned to post this, but after last month, I cannot stop turning it over in my head, and part of me feels like trash, but the other part of me feels like I was supportive, and karma just worked out in my favour. This is a long one, so stick with me. I'll add a little background to hopefully make this make a little more sense. So back in high school, I was the only black kid, which really freaking sucked. Think small town vibes outside of a big city. Jake was this rich white kid who was at my school who seemed to make it a mission to break me for no dang reason at all. Him and his friends would throw daily racial slurs in the halls, and I constantly dealt with rumours that I was violent or did heavy drugs, which got me pulled into the office multiple times. He'd go out of his way to sabotage my group projects and even ended up ruining my first real relationship, which frickin' sucked. Teachers always looked away because his family funded sports and were on the school board, and when it came time for me to graduate and leave school, I was angry and I carried a lot of serious scars. I never forgot him, but I also did not keep up with him or really anyone else from high school. For 15 years, I had zero idea what his life was like. I built mine instead by becoming a well-known massage therapist with regular clients in my city. I worked out 5 days a week at our country club to stay sane and strong, and honestly, I just did everything I could to not be the guy that people easily walked all over in high school. It is crazy. I mean, it's not crazy because it's just a fact and everyone knows it. But it is still crazy, like how much of a lasting impression your high school years or just your formative years leave on you. Like 15 years later, this poor man is still thinking, right, I need to gym every day. I need to be this solid man so that I can't get bullied again. Even though he'd be like, what, in his mid-30s now? I mean, not saying that bullying doesn't exist, by the way, at any age, but it's sad, isn't it? Anyway, fast forward to a few years ago, I met Sarah in a HIIT class at the gym. Partner drills led to casual, good jobs, then nods around the gym, then actual conversations between sets. We became loose gym friends, spotting, chatting about workouts and random life stuff. She seemed nice, but always had this sad vibe about her that I couldn't ever really figure out. Well, last year we were grabbing a coffee after a class at the gym coffee shop, and she showed me vacation photos of her recent family vacation on her phone. When her husband popped up, I froze. It was Jake. But this guy was bloated. He looked stressed as anything, had a receding hairline. What's wrong with that? Looked nothing like the cocky jerk I remembered overall. I kept my face neutral and I said nothing. After our talks got deeper, she would casually complain about her husband being moody, money being tight, him snapping at her and the kids from time to time. I listened more than I spoke. I said things like, "You deserve to feel safe at home. Constant stress like this is not sustainable." Nothing dramatic. I never mentioned knowing him or pushed hard. I just gave her realistic, honest feedback that anyone else would without diving too deep into the issues. She started opening up more about the criticism and lack of support at home. I suggested she talk to a therapist, and I gave a referral from my work network, and I told her to keep focusing on her own health through training. Did I steer things? Yeah, kind of. But marriages are complicated. I do not know how much was me versus years of their own issues. Last month, she told me she had filed for divorce. She hugged me and said my perspective helped her find courage. Jake is apparently shocked and spiraling. 15 years of carrying what he did to me as the only black kid finally caught up to him, then becoming the guy his wife confides in. Part of me feels cold satisfaction. The bigger part feels gross and empty. Was I any better than him in the end? Did I waste half my adult life mentally keeping score against someone who might not even remember me? Probably not. In all honesty, I didn't ever cross a line or give any advice that a stranger wouldn't give someone in that situation. I believe in karma, and even though it was a slow burn, this felt right. And honestly, maybe Sarah is happier and better off for it. Not maybe, she definitely is. Like, everything you did there was completely fine. I would feel no remorse about it at all. It's the same as if you didn't know this guy than if you did know him. I don't think your messages, what you were saying, would necessarily have changed that much, to be honest, if you'd never seen those family vacation photos, because everything you said, you'd say anyway. So you were just being a good friend. Yeah, maybe slightly you said a couple of things that you may not have said if you didn't know or you cared more, but saying you deserve to feel safe at home, constant stress like this is not sustainable, etc., is completely fine. And I also doubt that you, as just one of her friends, was the only driving force in her divorcing her husband. It was probably going to happen anyway. So I definitely would not feel bad about it. Yeah, you probably did help end the marriage, but it's a net positive and you wouldn't have been the only one. So well done. It's 0 for 2 for Aunt Jenny. So about a year ago, we had a run-in with my husband's uber religious aunt who thinks every couple should have about one kid. Now, at the time, it wasn't so bad and she was still a decent woman. What do you mean by about one, by the way? You can't really have like 0.75. Anyway, but other things have happened in her life that make me think she may have gone into a bit of religious hysteria. The whole family has decided we're not touching it with a 10-foot pole. I'm also on a very heavy flow right now and I'm bloated to heck. All of this is important. Anyway, back to the story. So our sister, who I'm just going to call Avery, has a nice house that hosts a lot of get-togethers. If you're a Brit, then you know that this weekend was peak get-together weather. It was exceptionally nice weather when this was posted almost a month or so ago. And so Avery sent out invites for a massive barbecue so we could enjoy the weather. Me and my husband get there and I'm wearing an Empire waist dress that's very flowy and I start eating. So I look a little pregnant. No biggie though, because a lot of people in the family know there's no chance of pregnancy with us. There's a few jokes here and there, but they're harmless. Like, I've got to say, it's a bit weird. Why are there jokes about you looking pregnant? Is that because you're wearing an Empire waist dress? I don't really know what that is. But like, joking that you look pregnant because you're a little bloated is kind of weird. Maybe I'm missing the joke here, but whatever. Now, here comes the best part. I've been couch locked. Me and my husband's smoked/took a few edibles before we went in on a lounge chair for quite some time now. I've also been getting loads of different cocktails shoved in my hands, so I'm very intoxicated. In this time, Aunt Jenny has also given me a few drinks too. Some other crazy stuff happened, but let's just skip to where me and my husband are now leaving and saying our goodbyes. I give Aunt Jenny a hug and kiss goodbye, and she freezes and pulls away. She looks me up and down, then starts on a furious tirade about how I shouldn't drink while pregnant and the harm it does to the fetus, blah blah blah. It's drawing a few stares from some other family members, and I just freeze. I have no clue what to do, but I'm already fed up of this aunt. So, in my very intoxicated state, I have the greatest idea ever. I just start crying, really hard. Jenny flusters for a second before trying to comfort me, but I don't let her go. I muster all the acting skills in the world, and I just stare her down in what I think is a heartbreaking face, and go, "It's a tumour. We're still waiting to see if it's benign or not." Then I start to wail. I fall into my husband's arms, and I keep screaming how I don't want to die young. My husband starts dragging me to the car while trying to keep a straight face, and once we get to the car, I let out one final dramatic, "Why me?" before I finally get in, and my husband peels out of there. All while my aunt is looking at us, ashen-faced, like we've just told her Teddy Jakes just died. Who is Teddy Jakes? I have no idea. Okay, he's an American... I've not heard of this guy. An American Christian evangelical pastor. Okay, it makes sense. We drove out of sight before parking up to pee ourselves laughing. We laughed the whole drive back, and we're still laughing about it right now. Though now I'm sober, I'm a little mortified. My husband has also renamed the food baby bump from Petunia to Tumora. Lol. Okay, wow. And there's an update to this one as well. The fallout has fallen upon me. I've been getting quite a lot of messages and calls from different family members asking if I'm okay. It's a very awkward conversation to have with people I hardly talk to, but the well wishes have been so lovely, and the reactions have been mixed. Some think it was hilarious, while others think it was in poor taste, but most people are giving me a break because I was out of it. That being said, I've yet to hear anything from Aunt Jenny, but I'm guessing when she finds out, it's not going to be a pleasant time. What do you mean some people are angry with you, or, you know, think it was in poor taste? If someone's accusing you, and it is an accusation, of drinking while being pregnant, like saying that you look pregnant when you're not, then you can do whatever you want, in my opinion. Traumatize them back. That's the whole point. Well, not of this situation, but of this story and the subreddit. And now for our final post of this episode. As I mentioned in the intro, this is a perfect example of matched energy. Don't pray for me. I don't need to be forgiven. To preface, my mum and I have been low to no contact for years now. Every time I try to reconnect, it ends the same way. She wants me to find, in her words, the truth, which to her is that Jesus loves Trump and she loves both of them, and I should live a better life like she does and just forgive her to save myself. Honestly, I've heard it all a million times. Now, I love my life, and no part of me yearns for a church that tells me I'm going to hell for loving my wife. I also have no desire to hear her explain how the Epstein list is fake news after she straight up told me, "I don't believe you," when I first told her about the abuse I experienced as a child. All this to say that talking to her does nothing but traumatize me further, and I've lost all F's to give when it comes to her. What an opening paragraph. So much in there. Jesus loves Trump, Epstein list is fake, and I don't care about your childhood abuse. It's pretty amazing stuff. Anyways, last time she messaged me, she asked for us to have a sit-down conversation about God and the teachings of the church. Oh, God, I would just be like, no. I mean, I know that's what happened anyway. But, God, I can think of nothing worse. Especially given that you've said, I don't want any of this. Like, stop harassing me. After sitting on it for a day, I eventually just responded with, no thank you. And that's when she gave me the perfect tee up. She told me she was heartbroken and that she's praying for me, as is my namesake, who is praying for me in heaven. For context, I'm named after my aunt, who I never knew that well because she was a nun living in a convent for all of my life until she left due to illness and died from a brain tumour a year later when I was in middle school. She also sent me a photo of her. Her last-ditch effort to guilt me into being straight, I guess. I responded almost immediately. I told her how much I think about my aunt, how much I look like her, how she was the eldest daughter of 6 children in an incredibly strict and conservative household, how she must have felt the weight of the world on her shoulders to never let her parents down and to lead by example for her siblings. She didn't have any boyfriends through college and never dated much at all before becoming a nun. I've also wondered why she became a nun. Of course, it was because of her strong love for God and Jesus, but maybe there were other motivators. Maybe she thought if she locked herself away from the world, she would never have to disappoint her family by being her true self. She'd never have to marry a man. It's no secret that historically, queer women have used the nunnery to escape societal norms of marriage and submission, and instead live their life with other women since the invention of Catholicism. Maybe she is praying for me, wherever she is, to live my true and authentic self in a way she never did. Maybe she was just as gay as me and lived a life of seclusion to escape persecution. Woof. What paragraph. That's up there for me, with one of the best I've read in a while. I can always tell a comment hits home with her when she ghosts me. It's been months and she never responded. Meanwhile, my godless life is far closer to the teachings of Jesus than she will ever be, as she spends her day spewing hate and calling the secret police on thy neighbour. Wow. Well guys, I did tell you at the start of this episode to stay tuned for the last post, and I hope that if you did stay, you feel vindicated in that decision. I'd rather have them safe. Years ago, I was struggling with keeping everyone safe on a trip to town. I had a couple of kids on feet and one in a wheelchair. The two on feet were absolutely determined to run away anytime my back was turned. As it happened, there was a pet store right next to the fabric store I needed to go to when one of the kids made a break for it into the parking lot. Instead of heading to the fabric store, I grabbed said child, plopped him on top of the kid in the wheelchair with instructions to not move a muscle, and I headed to the pet store instead. When we got inside, I headed straight to the leash and collar aisle, and I started the process of fitting the two on feet for harnesses and leashes. The kids thought this was a great adventure, and I even let them pick out their own colours. Then here comes some old Bitty with her pocket dog. She started out with just huffing and sighing, but within about 30 seconds, she evidently couldn't control herself any longer. That's the most cruel thing I've ever seen, treating children like dogs. From my crouched position, I replied, well, I'd rather have them treated like dogs than hit by a car, and I went back to fitting the harness that I was working on. All she could come up with was, well, I guess. The kids got their harnesses and leashes, I got my fabric, nobody got hurt. Later on, when we went to Disney, we had people stopping us and offering up to $100 for the harnesses. Nope, sorry, you can hit up the pet store for your own. Okay. What I will say is, reading this story, I was a little bit surprised by the fact that you, OP, went into a pet store to get your kids a lead and a harness. I'm presuming, by the way, that these aren't harnesses and leashes for kids, unless pet shops actually have these things for kids. I doubt they do. However, actually, maybe it's thinking on your feet. Very clever. And as you can see by the people in Disney who were probably like, whoa, that's a good idea. You've done well. I just can't get over the fact that your kids are wearing dog harnesses. Again, I might be wrong. If pet shops do have harnesses and leads for kids, I'm pretty confident they don't, because the clue's sort of in the name of the shop. But anyway, I completely agree with you. Like, it's better that they're safe. However, I would think it's a bit strange, like that they're just knocking about in a dog harness. Now, if they were in like a normal kid's harness, I would say 100% yes. And I have absolutely nothing against kids wearing harnesses with a lead on. You know, it's not like the best thing to see, because you'd be like, oh, well, they're human. It's not ideal. But also they are a young child who could easily just run into a road and die. So yes, I completely agree with you. I'd rather have them safe as well. However, this woman, I mean, I honestly, I can't like say she's like completely in the wrong. Because, like, imagine you're just walking along and you see two kids in dog harnesses with a leash. Again, they might not be dog harnesses. I'm happy to hold my hands up if they're not. But I'd be like, okay, what's going on here? So this is probably the one story that I've read so far where I'm a bit more like, well, whatever. You know what? Let me just look this up, right? Leash and collar pet store for kids. It's like, do they do that? They can't. No, it's all pet collars. I'm not being an idiot here, am I? I guess a kid could wear... This is the thing. Actually, like, is a dog harness... Would it not fit on a kid? I mean, it's pretty similar. You just put your arms through it. Maybe I take it back somewhat. Maybe it wouldn't look that weird. And also, I have to remember this. The kid doesn't have to walk on all fours like a dog. It's a great point there. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. Another post reminded me of my blind friend's story about getting her eyes examined. A friend of mine is BLIND blind, like both eyes removed as a toddler with no memory of vision blind. She has prosthetic eyes for both appearance and maintaining the sockets. I'm not exactly sure what it means, but apparently it can cause problems not having orbs in the orbital sockets. She told me the story of how once she went into her eye doctor, obviously to check on her sockets and other anatomy, not her eyes, and the new to her assistant that checked her in asked her to do a routine vision check. I'm completely blind, she told the assistant. Oh, we know, but just so we can get a proper exam of your eyes, we need a record of your vision. My friend kept insisting she was so very, very blind. The assistant kept insisting they needed the exam to check on her eyes. Finally, fed up, my friend popped out one of her prosthetic eyes and held it out to the assistant and said, "Here, now you can examine it all you want." The doctor was apparently apologetic. I asked why her guide dog wasn't a giveaway. She hadn't brought her as it was just easier to have her husband take her. I don't know how her needing the assistant to guide her to the room wasn't a hint, but well, I guess she figured it out eventually. Now this sort of story I do not get at all, because I would feel like as soon as like you go in to an optometrist or whatever they're called, I've forgotten the word, and you check in or whatever and you say, yeah, I've got an appointment, then they ask for your name, and then surely immediately your information comes up with the fact that you are blind and you have 2 prosthetic eyes. So the assistant knows that. If you're brand new and your prosthetics are really good and you say, I'm blind, and you don't actually actively explain, like, I have 2 prosthetic eyes, this, I don't really, like, the assistant can just say what she said and that's all right. Like, you haven't actually, like, when you say you're completely blind, I don't know. I kind of get it from the assistant. Like, she might be like, well, we'll just do an examination for other reasons of your eye, etc., etc. Because completely blind, I mean, that is like, completely is a subjective word when someone is telling it to you. However, if you just said to them, I have 2 prosthetic eyes, then she would have been like, okay, well, obviously you can't see. However, I feel like it should have just been on your records anyway. The eye test itself would have been very funny, and I kind of feel like you should have just gone through with it and just taken the mick. Like, imagine the person or the assistant or the whatever, the doctor saying, you know, read me the third line on the chart as far down as you can. And you go, what chart? And they're like, the one on the wall. What wall? The one in this room. What room? I don't even know where I am, because that is how blindness works. I mean, I'm not being an idiot, but I do feel like the assistant asking for just a basic vision test, and again, unless she has the information on her screen in front of her, which she should have done, isn't that crazy of a suggestion? Like, if someone said to me, I'm deaf, completely deaf, and I said, okay, let's do a hearing test, that's not that stupid, because we could be checking for other things at the same time, or like pressure, etc., etc. I'm not trying to let the assistant off. I just think that without the information of I have 2 prosthetic eyes, which you didn't actually say, according to this, it's not the most crazy thing ever. I know you guys would disagree with me on that, and that's fine. I just feel like, just say I've got 2 prosthetic eyes. There you go. Now for our final story of this one. Unsolicited family planning advice didn't get him an answer he liked. A couple of months ago, I went out to visit my parents and some family for the holidays. I took an evening to go and visit my aunt and her husband during our trip. Now, I love my aunt's husband. He's a fantastic and loving dad and grandfather, and has always been one of my favourite people. He's pretty solid in his religious faith, but it translates into love, and he supports their family in a way that I've always been envious of. Both my kids are unplanned, having been told before the first that I couldn't have kids, and then my youngest is here despite 3 birth control methods failing, including a condom, Planned B, and a month of the patch. We had another pregnancy less than a year after my youngest was born from failed birth control that I terminated, and my partner went for a vasectomy a month after that. My partner and I currently pay more in daycare than our mortgage, and our oldest also has an autoimmune condition. We have no familial support system. We're just barely making it financially and mentally, so we have decided that our youngest is definitely our last. During this visit, my aunt took my oldest to go work on her Lego advent calendar, while I chatted with her husband, Paul, in the living room, and my toddler played with the dogs. We discussed how cute my little one was, and Paul asked if we were having any more. Now, all my family knows how my last pregnancy ended. I'm not ashamed of it, so he actually already knew this before asking. I told him, no, my 2 were more than enough, and my partner is sterile now. We don't have the support or funds to care for another without making the 2 we have suffer. He said, you never know, the next one could be an angel. And I shot back before I could catch myself. Technically, the next one is an angel. Oh, wow. What a line, by the way. That might be one of the best single lines of rebuttal I've ever heard. That just sums up this subreddit so well. Wow. That is just 7 words that are just plucked from heaven, for want of a better phrase, but just pure perfection from OP. Sorry. That is just phenomenal. Anyway, we both had a cringe face for a moment, and then he quickly moved on to a new topic of conversation. I know he meant well because he loves his family and grandbabies. His family is everything to him. But it's like it didn't click that most people don't have a supportive family, and having kids these days is expensive and exhausting, even with support. Okay, and there we go. What a way to end this one. As I said, one of the most generational lines I've ever read, and I don't use the word generational lightly. Phenomenal stuff. Terrible from Paul, like absolutely terrible. The fact that he knew about you terminating your last pregnancy and still said that is disgusting. But also, I've got to say well done to you, because that is such a sensible decision you've made. Like, so many people, I feel like, do not give the required thought to having a child. And even when they've had a couple of children, they think, okay, I'll go again. And you make such a good point about it affecting your children's lives if you have a third one, because you're not going to make any more money per se. So then 2 into 3, or the money you have for 2 kids is now being split into 3. That's a big difference. And I think if more people acted and thought like this, the world would probably be a better place. I'm not saying to not have kids, by the way. Like, kids are great. I will hopefully have kids myself, and I definitely plan to. But if it's financially going to be extremely challenging to give them the life that they need and deserve, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't do it. And I do think more people should think like that. Fair play to you, OP. Paul, you're a gimp. And I'll catch you when you're older, just like all of you guys. Think twice before you judge someone for vaping. This happened earlier today. I was at work, outside on a smoke break. I vape. One of my co-workers came outside and took it upon herself to start lecturing me. Vaping kills people, right? There's metal and other chemicals in vapes that are so bad for you. You should quit and look to God for guidance. She just kept going on and on about how badly I should quit. Now, I don't entirely disagree, but I find it rude to just comment on someone else's habits unsolicited like that. So, I responded the best way I knew how. Well, there are a lot worse things I could be doing right now instead of vaping. My mum got me hooked on drugs when I was a young teen, and I've been clean off fentanyl and other hard drugs for about 9 months now. Vaping helps me to do that, so right now it's one day and one thing at a time for me. This is all true, by the way. Her eyes grew so wide and she immediately apologized, saying, "I'm sorry, I didn't know all that. I don't expect people to know, but maybe next time she will think twice before giving unsolicited advice." Okay, wow, there we go. 5 more stories to come in this episode, but firstly, I've got to give my thoughts on this. Look, I get it. She's not wrong, is she? Vaping isn't good for you, and it would be better if nobody in the world did it. And I think OP accepts that fact, right? They're like, I don't actually disagree with her. Yeah, I accept it's bad for me. However, to do that to someone that you don't know, although maybe she does know you because it's one of your co-workers. I don't know. It's a weird one. Obviously, you're not good friends, clearly. And she can't know that much about you. But yeah, to say that to one of your co-workers without knowing what's going on in their life, because clearly she doesn't know, it's very, very poor. But yeah, I'm glad you told her the truth and put her back in her box. Now for our next Traumatize Them Back post. That was my son. I just recently lost my son to police gunfire. Every day I have what I call murder tourists drive by the house since the media exposed the address. I've had a couple of situations where I'll walk up to a parked car and ask what they needed. They will ask if I know anything about the shooting. I look at them and say, "That was my son." The look is priceless. I'm literally watching the blood drain from their faces. The best instance was when a friend and his wife were over. We are sitting in the carport. 2 Karens in a golf cart drive by, rubbernecking. They circle around and pull up to us. "Can you tell us anything about the shooting?" My friend jumped up like a mama bear. I tried to stop her, but she walked very quickly over to them and scolded them. I couldn't hear everything, but what I did hear, and I'm probably paraphrasing here, was, "We just wanted to know what happened." Well, you don't need to know, do you? I love my friends. Well, that's one of the saddest posts that I've read from this subreddit. Fair play to you for doing so well here. I just want to also mention what OP left in the comments down below. I'll put it up on screen right now. They say, also, I will say that I've never seen such an outpouring of love and support from neighbors, some of whom I've never met before. For every murder tourist, there are 3 people opening up their hearts to me. There are good people. Also, I forgot to mention, one woman gave me $60 to help with funeral expenses. She said she wasn't rich, but she understood what I was going through because of personal experience. That's awful. I mean, a truly awful thing to happen to you. I guess that you are traumatizing these people back, but I can't even really talk about that because it's so unimportant compared to what's happened to you. I think the thing that I would say is murder tourism. Like, is that really a thing? You see a shooting on the news, you know the address, you go to that location and you're asking questions to local people. Obviously, there's a decent chance that someone's going to know something and someone's going to know someone that was involved in this if you're asking people that are on the street. It's crazy that this even exists. Murder tourism. Is that a thing? That is disgusting. Anyway, 4 more posts to come. Let's get into the next. Homophobic parents? Be even more homophobic. Hi, for some context, I, a 16-year-old guy, am gay. I'm only out to my group of besties and my brother though. I'm part of a Muslim family. They're wonderful, and I love them with my whole heart and soul. But my mum and stepdad, my mum's 42 and my stepdad is 46, are homophobic. My brother, who's 13, isn't as much, though he does have some slight aversion to the LGBT community. So, we were on a road trip on our way to some auntie's house, and me and my brother were watching Mean Girls on my phone, having a good time. The jokes were funny, and my parents were chatting indistinctively. That is, until a certain joke happens in the movie. I think the joke was about some kids holding a gun, saying they used it to hunt animals and homosexuals. I laughed because, haha, get it? Southern Americans, am I right? But my dad was not having it. In the middle of the road, he turns to see me and my brother and says in a kind of threatening tone, "Did I just hear the word homosexuals?" I said, yeah, and that it was just a joke in the movie. Then he said, "I better not see you watching that weird gay content," with my mum just nodding and saying yes. I was livid, but I quickly came up with a good answer to that. "Oh, don't worry, Dad. The joke is about shooting down gay people, as it should be," I said with a smile on my face. My brother just looked at me with a face that screamed, "Dude, what the F?" My mum looked at me with a similar face, but slightly worried. And my dad just muttered, "Well, don't say that. You must respect others." He just tells me to stop talking and says that we must be good to others and respect them and blah blah blah. Since then, they haven't even muttered a word whenever I mention something LGBT related. The biggest reaction I got was when I got an eye roll from my mum when I pulled out the 1,500 species of animals have homosexual tendencies, only one is homophobic card. I kind of feel like a jerk for that, but I felt really frustrated with the whole homophobia and hypocrisy from other Muslims. I'm proudly Muslim, but I really hate when people say that it's the most peaceful religion and Muslims are so kind and loving, when my very existence is a crime in the eyes of my family and the entire country I live in right now. Anyway, remember to treat others as you'd like them to treat you. Have a wonderful day, and remember to drink water. Well, you know what? Thank you very much, OP, because I've just forgotten. So what I'm going to do now is take a lovely long sip. Oh, and a cheeky gargle as well. Yeah, very interesting last couple of sentences from you there, saying that you don't like the fact that Muslims are, or Islam is the most powerful religion and Muslims are so kind and loving when your sexuality isn't actually accepted by Islam. Interesting point. But yeah, it's a weird one. I don't want to get into the depths of this in terms of your religion versus how you actually like interact with other people and appreciate other people's sexuality, gender, whatever it is. It's a bit of a lose-lose situation, I think, if I go down that road. But you handled yourself well there, I suppose. And hopefully, at one point, you will feel comfortable enough to have that conversation with your parents. But I don't know, it's going to be tough, isn't it? Now, interestingly, the next post comes from that same person. They've posted again. Am I, quote, acting autistic? Well, guess why. Hi there, they say. I recently posted another story in here and you all really liked it, the one I just read, so I thought it would be nice to share another one. This one is not about homophobia though, it's about autism. For some context, I suspect I have autism. I have hyperfixations, I stim quite often, I'm kind of noise sensitive, I have trouble communicating, etc. I'm currently going to a psychiatrist, but it's not to get a diagnosis. My mum doesn't think I'm autistic, and one of my besties, who has autism, also thinks that I'm actually probably autistic. So this story starts with me leaving the prayer room at my school. This prayer room is located right next to some stairs. Luckily, not many people use them, so I don't have to deal with kids often. Not this time though. As I was leaving, a kid, 12 or 13-year-old guy, was going down the stairs and sees me walking out of the prayer room. And I guess he didn't know what that place was for, so he asked me what I was doing there. Not only did my social anxiety kick in, but I also don't really like talking about religion, especially to children, so I wanted to leave the conversation as soon as possible, while also being funny. And I said, "Oh, magic rituals, of course." I chuckled a little, but the kid was pretty serious. He looked at me dead in the eyes and says, "Why are you acting so autistic, bro? Stop that. It's so weird." I was obviously flabbergasted. I assumed that I was acting a little robotic. It happens sometimes, especially when I get socially anxious, which I assume is what he meant by weird. But also, dude, I don't know you. So I did something that kind of gives me mixed feelings. I looked at him with a smile, and this is the conversation that transpired. "Make a wild guess," I said. "What?" "Well, you asked why I'm acting so autistic, so make a wild guess as to why." His face goes from, "What does that even mean?" to, wait, no, to, "Oh, dang," in a couple of seconds. It was priceless. He immediately starts apologizing, and I just tell him to please not talk to me ever again. It turns out he's one of my brother's besties. So my brother comes to talk to me soon after, saying that he didn't mean to insult me, he just uses the word autistic often. I told him it's fine, but I was still pretty offended, and that his friend shouldn't call others autistic with bad connotations. I told my friends about that, and they were all pretty supportive. I didn't tell them about the clever comeback part of the story though. I think I was a bit of a jerk there because he was just a kid, and I insinuated I have autism without having a proper diagnosis, but whatever. I still got some laughs out of it, at least, and the kid's insult was actually kind of affirming in the end. Remember, children, don't tell strangers at school that they're acting autistic. Drink lots of water and have a nice day. Now, I would drink some more water, OP, but I just did, and I don't think the people listening to this want to hear me gargle again, but I will drink some more very, very soon. However, update. There is an update to come here. So, I just left school and I saw my brother and two of his friends. One of them is the kid from before. I'll call him Alex. The other will be Patrick. I was chatting with my brother and Patrick says hi. My brother proceeds to ask me which of them I like most. Here is how the conversation went. It's worth explaining that both my friends and my brothers know about the story above, except, you know, the clever comeback part. My brother says, "Patrick is nice, right?" I reply, "Yeah, I like him better than Alex." Alex then says, "What, do you think I care?" "Oh, sorry," I reply. "Am I too autistic for you to care?" "Immature as frick?" "Yeah," but his face was priceless. Also, F you. I just left the first batch of my finals. I've got no patience to deal with this BS. Alright, get in the comments down below, guys. What do you think? Is using words like autistic, gay, etc. to insult people, is that funny? Let me know in the comments down below. Very interested to hear your thoughts. I think I probably know the answer, but I want to know your thoughts anyway. And be honest. Alright? Seriously. There's no hiding. This is real life. What the does that even mean? Someone left a funny comment actually that I'm just reading here. One time in high school, some kid spilled yogurt in his lunchbox and his friends were like, "That's so autistic." I ignored it because I didn't know them and was too anxious to speak to them. But in my head, I imagined saying, "Well, I'm autistic and I didn't spill yogurt. Yeah, you're just dumb. Simple as that." Alright, 2 more stories to go in this episode. The 5th one is very, very strange, to be honest. And the last one is ultimately pretty sad. Now moving on to our 5th post. He made it weird, I made it weirder. Once upon a forever ago, I lived in a small town and had dated 2 friends from a group at different times. Years apart. Small town etiquette was observed. One night I was hanging out and one of the friends I hadn't had much of a rapport with decides to loudly say across the room, "So, you slept with both friend 1 and friend 2. How was it? Who was better? Obviously, he's trying to embarrass me, but our flings weren't secret. Again, small town. So he was just being a jerk, trying to stir drama, which again was weird, as only friend 2 was there. Now, I'm a few drinks into my night at this point and unbothered, so I replied just as loudly, "Dude, if you want to know how they are in bed, you should F them yourself." He left me alone after that. I mean, that is a quick, witty response, and it's the perfect thing to say in this situation. I can't say anything more than that. I don't actually think that that's that weird of a comment to say. I mean, like, I've definitely said stupid stuff like that before, so I'm not going to say that your friend's really, really weird. Just a bit of banter. Depends on the way he said it. Like, if he was actually wondering who was better, then that's odd. If he was saying it as a joke and one of the people's in the room just to kind of embarrass them, I think that's pretty funny, personally. But great reply. Really good reply. Put him back in his place. Love it. And now for our final Traumatize Them Back post. You're too old for Superman. For context, me and my grandpa were super close. He was the father I never had, and I was basically his daughter. Whenever my mum thought my dad was getting too rough with me, I would spend days to weeks at a time with my grandparents, and my grandpa was everything to me. I lost him in 2020, and it broke me. So now, 5 years later, me and my mum were going through some of my grandpa's stuff, and we found his old Superman keychain. I wore this keychain on my purse, religiously. One day, while out with friends, this older white woman walked up to me and said, completely unprompted, mind you, she wasn't even a part of our conversation, nor did I or any of my friends know this lady, "You're too old for Superman." I looked this woman dead in the eye and say with my best dark humor smile, "Thanks, but that keychain isn't because I'm into DC, it's because it belonged to my grandpa, who's been dead for 5 years now. I almost unalived myself after losing him, but glad to know your opinion on one of the few things I have left of him." Yeah, all that was true. I've tried unaliving myself more than once, and that was one of the worst years of my life, and losing him was the straw that broke the camel's back. The poor lady looked horrified and scurried off. I make dark jokes and laugh about them all the time, so I was kind of shocked that my friends seemed concerned about me. But I guess getting reminded of my dead grandpa and making a joke about it does turn some heads. Oh, there we go. Bit of a sad story to end this episode, but at least you traumatized her very, very well, and you came out of that as the moral victor. But goodness me, imagine hearing that and just, you're like, oh, I was just trying to say you're not a kid anymore. Yeah, you're not allowed to say that to a randomer you don't know. Like, why is it your business? It's a sort of weird thing. I feel like when people get to that sort of elderly state where they sometimes can just like not care anymore, they lose their sort of inhibitions, which I think is a good thing, because they're like, you know what, I'm old, I'm not going to be around for too long, I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it, I'm going to say what I want to say. I respect that. But then you get to situations like this where it's too far and you are getting too nosy in other people's business, and at that point you need to just like settle down. But yeah, interesting thought. Elderly people just knocking about saying what they want. I'm kind of all for it, but when they step over the line, they need to be shut down just like this. That was brilliant. My father-in-law deserved it. Now this one has the tag of epic burn/needs burn cream, so we should be in for a good one to start things off. My SO and I were living together in sin, according to my father-in-law, with another couple as roommates. This is a man who kept changing his religion until he found one that was very patriarchal to suit his ideas. I love my long-suffering mother-in-law and the siblings, one older, one younger. Brendan, about 15 at this point. For several months, he refused to step into our sinful home, berating us for adultery. The only reason for two people to sleep together was for adding children to God's flock, etc. But finally, he came by for tea and to keep up the tirade. He'd been talking about sex/procreation again when I stopped him with a phrase that caught his immediate attention. "You know," I said, "I really admire you." "You do?" "Oh yeah, just think. I know how much you love your wife, and to think, you haven't touched her in 15 years, not since Brendan was born. That's taken a lot of willpower." He looked at us all sitting there looking at him, and he shut right up. And actually, he stopped bugging us about it from then on. There we go. Strong start to this episode. Now, with no other stories being read out, that has to go in at number 1. But I reckon there's room for improvement. It's a good burn, but it's what I expect on this subreddit. I wouldn't say it's anything special. Okay, traumatize them back post number 2. Scammer couldn't hang up fast enough. Another story reminded me of this incident. It's the only time I ever got a scammer to leave me alone. Obligatory context. I was going through a really hard period of time when this took place. Honestly, the worst period of my life. Things are much better for me now, and I have a life I love. I've been plagued by a scammer who seemed to call every 2 hours on my days off. I've been at work this day, but as I was unlocking the door, I heard my phone start going. I dashed to pick it up because I was waiting for news from my parents about my unwell baby nephew. The scammer said, "Hello, is this OP?" I'd had a terrible day, and the last thing I needed was this scammer calling all evening. I burst into tears and said, "I'm sorry, she passed away last night. Did you know her well?" Click. I never got another scam call for the whole time I was in that house. Okay, very good. And there's nothing better, I think, than getting revenge on these horrible scammers. I mean, there are YouTube channels out there, which I'm sure you guys know of, that just do genuinely the God's work. They're so good and so funny. And yeah, scam callers, awful. They honestly do not care about how you're doing in life. They prey on the vulnerable. So I'm surprised, actually, that this person actually hung up. Normally, they go after people that are mourning. So, yeah, good stuff. Because I hate scammers so much, I think this goes into number 1, and the first story drops down to number 2. Okay, now moving on to number 3. I watched him sink into the floor, and it was so satisfying. The tag here is clever comeback. That could really tempt me to push this into number 1. Let's see. In brackets, women talk. I began menstruating in 7th grade, age 11, still in primary school where I'm from. I had terrible dysmenorrhea, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and ovarian cysts. I was in the playground during recess when I was cornered by one teacher, Mr. May. He didn't like me. I was too smart of a girl for him. He began, "I need to talk to you. You're absent way too often. Every month, you miss at least one day." I stood still, with other students stopping to see what was going on. "Every single month," he went on. I stared at him. Honestly, I didn't know what to say, but I was determined not to be embarrassed. I just stared and said, "Yes." And you could see the frown change to a look of horror as the light dawned in his eyes. He turned 3 shades of red. He started to stammer and then stopped and scurried away. I truly believe that minor confrontation gave me the strength to stand up for myself from then on, and I became a very self-assured teenager and adult woman. There we go. Pretty good stuff. I think, to be honest, this story gets let down by the fact that you didn't say to him, "Yes, and I get my period once every month," or something along those lines, or like, "Yeah, and what happens to girls every month," or something like that. I think that would have been more of a burn, although it was implied, and I think he understood what you were saying, but I'm not 100% sure. For that reason, I'm going to put it in 3rd. I just feel like there could have been more of a burn. You could have owned him in front of everyone. I don't know if you owned him enough. Okay, now moving on to number 4. Sailor did what hot sauce could not. I was the recipient of the trauma here. Interesting, okay. In the olden days, when I was a child, sometime last century, around the late 70s, I was a stubborn thumbsucker. The conversation is approximate, by the way. While I remember the event, I can only guess at what was actually said, but I've done my best. Anyway, I mean that quite literally. My thumb was my comfort, and nobody could take it away from me. My parents tried bitterants and Tabasco, and I don't remember what else. I do remember sneaking a glass of water to bed and dunking my thumb in the water to deal with the Tabasco. Nothing they did would stop me. Even social stigma didn't stop me. Looking back, it probably made it worse, as I sought comfort from being ridiculed. That is strange, but fair enough. Then, this happened. I was a Girl Scout brownie at the time, so probably around 6 or 7 years old, and our troop had the opportunity to tour a US Navy vessel. We lined up to go on the ship, carefully crossing the gangplank, under the supervision of one of the sailors standing on the ship side of the approach. As I crossed, thumb securely in my mouth, nervous about the crossing, the sailor helped me onto the ship. And then, "Young lady, if you don't stop sucking your thumb, it's going to fall off." Following my eye roll at him, he held out his hand, with only a nub where his thumb was supposed to be. I speak from experience. I suggest you learn from my mistake. Guys, that thumb came out, hand went behind my back, thumb wrapped in a fist as I attempted to protect it, and the thumb sucking never happened again. That is very, very good. I love that from the sailor. I also love the fact that you, OP, are explaining your own trauma that's happened to you straight into number 1. That is by far the best one so far. Okay, number 5. It's just a joke. Sure, I'll laugh. So this was several years ago when I was still in school. 13 or 14 years old, as anxious and awkward as everyone else. Now, I don't know why, but for some reason, a small group of boys in my class had come up with a certain game. In the middle of class, while the teacher was looking at the blackboard, they would reach forward and snap the bra strap of whatever unassuming girl was sitting in front of them, trying to unhook them through their shirts. Several times, I remember girls very quietly asking their seat neighbor to help them fix it, but never speaking up. I very clearly remember the embarrassment I felt when one of them succeeded on me, anxiously excusing myself to go to the bathroom and fix it while they were laughing. I remember asking them to stop the break after that, only to be told not to be a female dog, it's just a joke. Now, something about that word stuck with me. So I waited, and of course, it happened again. But this time, instead of sinking through the floor in shame, I throw my head back and start howling with laughter, startling the heck out of everyone in class, including the boys behind me and my maths teacher. I played in the school theatre. I can get loud. Before anyone can even start to ask questions, I turn around in my seat, smiling sweetly at the jokesters, and announce, again, loud enough for everyone to hear, "What's wrong? I thought unhooking the girls' bras was your joke. Why aren't you laughing?" The teacher, looking at me completely horrified, asked what I was talking about, and I, still playing innocent and naive, happily explained what had been going on while the boys just started looking more and more uncomfortable. When the teacher asked if anyone else had experienced this, several girls raised their hands. The boys got detention and the school had an assembly on sexual harassment. It was a good day. That is great, because not only have you got some great revenge, you're also teaching not just those boys, but also everyone in your school about, how bad this is. Because these kids aren't very old, are they? I mean, you're 13, 14, you should know better, but still, you're young at that point. You've not fully sort of grasped the world, and you haven't really got your own moral compass yet. Maybe I'm being a little bit too easy on these guys, but at 13 or 14, did I really know what was going on? Did I really know right from wrong? I wouldn't have done this, is what I will say, but I'll give them a little bit of lenience. However, what you did, phenomenal. First of all, just actually really funny as well. Imagine they're shocked. They're like, "What are you laughing at?" Well, you said it was a joke. But yeah, you've told everyone else in that class as well to stand up for themselves, because imagine if everyone just kept quiet. And look, don't get me wrong, I don't really blame the girls for keeping quiet. It's a terrible thing that's happening to them, and it's obviously extremely uncomfortable. But you took one for the team, you stuck your neck out, and yeah, I can tell you're a drama kid, because I would not have the courage to do that. So fair play. Well done to you. Now, the question is, where does it rank? You know what? I think because of the education that you've sort of caused by doing this, the fact that you've caused an assembly on sexual harassment by doing this, it goes up to number 1 for me. Look, the sailor one was great, but ultimately it was just a girl sucking her thumb. This is teaching boys not to do this because it's extremely serious and is sexual harassment. Up to number 1. Okay, now we're into the second half of the post. This is number 6. Don't ask a question if you aren't ready for the answer. I was meeting my in-laws, and I was warned that my father-in-law tends to be inappropriate as a way to make other people uncomfortable. He's harmless, just a jerk. So, while we were there, father-in-law starts drinking. Then he said, "Here's a way you can tell a lot about a woman. Are you shaved or natural?" Then he looked at my crotch. What the heck? Like, maybe I'm going too far here, but if the girl that I was dating, if their parents said something like that to me, I actually don't think I could be with that girl anymore. Is that unfair? Like, you're marrying into that family, and I know, like, the girl is her own person, but how can you say something like that and then like associate yourself with that family? Maybe that's too harsh. What a weird thing to say. Anyway, And also, this is a man to a woman. Remember that, which makes it even weirder. OP continues. So, I met his gaze and said, I trim. It's the best way to be hygienic without causing skin issues. He turned bright red and couldn't believe I answered. He never made a comment like that again to me because I, quote, wasn't any fun. When we got home, my partner gave me a high five because he'd never seen anyone shut the guy up before. Okay, very good story, but what a creep. Again, similar to the previous story, I think like you've got to stop people like this doing stuff like this. This is, once again, bordering on sexual harassment. It's definitely harassment, isn't it? So, for that reason alone, it ranks highly. It's not going to be as high as number 1 because that story was elite. And I think the sailor story was just a bit more funny. So I'm going to put this... Actually, I'm going to put it at number 4, I think. Because the scammer one, again, I hate scammers. That goes in at number 4. Now moving on to number 7. Dark humor got darker than they bargained for. When I was in high school, there were these guys that were friends of a friend, and I'd often eat lunch in the same area. I didn't particularly like them, but I also thought them to be harmless. One day at lunch, I overheard them make a Holocaust joke. Yep, I think it was an oven joke. Haha, very funny. Sarcastic, of course. I turned to them very calmly and I asked them to confirm that they were making a joke. The jerks had no shame. One had said the joke, the other had thought it was hilarious. Once they confirmed, I looked the joke teller straight in the eye and said, this is honest, I'm Jewish. And I watched the blood absolutely drain from these guys' faces. They were speechless, truly horrified. All of their cocky confidence and their smirks over their edgy, dark humor vanished. I hope they still think about that nearly a decade later. How stupid are you to make a joke like this in public with other people around that obviously could very well be Jewish? Not that it matters, by the way. I mean, it's still a terrible joke. Even if other people around you were German or not involved at all, not in any way sort of related, like, you know what I mean? It's not funny. But if you're going to make these jokes, like, at least make them in private. I'm not saying that dark humor doesn't exist, by the way. And I'd be lying if I said I never made a joke bordering on this. Yeah, that's just the truth, all right? So hate me if you want to hate me. But let's be honest. I like dark humor. I think it's quite funny. Not in public, though, where people could get offended and, you know, like, to say this in public and not think and not be surprised that there's a Jewish person that could overhear you is so dumb. Like, you're saying this in public. Oh my God, I'm shocked you're Jewish. Why? A very high percentage of people in the world are Jewish. Like, it's a very common religion. I mean, good revenge from you, but you're just stating a fact. And ultimately, it can't be that good of a revenge because these guys are just idiots. So it's not going to rank that highly for me, but well done for shutting them down nonetheless. I think this one can go in at number 4, below the scammer. I'm just thinking, actually, like, I've got the creepy father-in-law at 4th. Well, now 5th. And the first story, the father-in-law burn, at 6th. I'm just wondering if that should be swapped. We'll think about it at the end. But anyway, that story goes in at number 4. Okay, now moving on to number 8. Thanks for the unsolicited advice on my dying father. Interesting. Got a new co-worker a couple of months back. For reasons, he was obsessed with golfing. After a couple of days of working in each other's vicinity, he decided it was time to get to know his new co-worker, me. It's pretty basic small talk at first, but eventually he starts talking about golf. It's a pleasant enough conversation, and at some point he asked if I ever played. I said no, but that my dad loved to golf. He asked how often my dad golfed, and I gave the answer that he went weekly until he got sick. Oh, well, he can't let some sickness get him down. Gotta power through. That's how you get better. After a while of me dancing around details while he goes on about how my dad needed to get back out there, I finally just tell him that my dad has cancer. Well, he can't let that cancer beat him. My aunt had breast cancer and she never stopped doing the things she loved. Wait, this guy doubled down? Wow, he kept going? Crazy. My dad was diagnosed very recently, so this happened when that wound was very fresh. I interrupted my new friend and I told him that, well, it's a little hard for him to get around now. What with the seizure he had that took his control over the left side of his body, and the surgery he had recently for his stage 4 brain cancer. Holy. I didn't hear another word from him the rest of my shift. He quit before my next one. You got him to quit? He was that embarrassed. Wow. That has catapulted this story right up the leaderboard, I'm going to be honest. The fact that he didn't even come back, he was so shocked. Well, what an idiot. Like, what an idiot. Saying that when you don't know somebody, don't let an illness get them down. Like, that is so dumb. Because you have no idea what illness they might have. But then, when you're told they have cancer, then saying, well, come on, don't let cancer get you down. What? I didn't expect him to be as brain dead as that, but fair play. This is very, very close to the top. Where does this go? Where does this go? Oh, it's so high. I think it's going to go second. I really like the harassment story. I really do. Because there's something about like teenage boys just learning early on from a shock not to do terrible things like they were doing. But this guy, I mean, he's already gone. Like, he's working now. He's an idiot. You did get him to quit as well. It's close. Also, my dad had cancer last year. Editor Steve-O, who's editing this video right now, his mum sadly passed away from cancer, which is obviously horrible. Two of my best mates currently are cycling from the top of Scotland to as far as you can go down the country to the very, very most southern westerly point of England to raise money for one of their dads who also died a couple of years ago now. Maybe it was a couple of years ago, of the same cancer that my dad had. So all that being said, I don't know, maybe this should be number one. It's close. It's very, very close. I'm gonna put it at number 2 though, not because of it's not serious, not as serious as the harassment thing. I think just the revenge was more courageous and like out there in the harassment story than this one, but this was still very, very good, and the fact that he quit is so elite. Okay, now moving on to our penultimate story. When will I have kids? I'll tell you when. This was about 10 years ago when this happened. I was in my late 20s. We were coming out of the first recession, and I barely had a PLA, let alone a plan for my life. No idea what a PLA is. I'm going to guess, before I look it up, a pretty loose anus. That's called thinking on the spot. Since the age of 18, I've always been asked when I was going to have kids or if I was pregnant yet. No idea why people were so obsessed with my reproductive organs, but go off, queen. My mum was the worst. Every conversation I would have with her, she would ask, but not because she wanted grandkids, but actually because, according to her, she regretted having kids, and not having them is the greatest thing ever. Did I mention that I'm the second oldest of 5? Okay, surely after like the first couple, you're like, well, I actually don't really like this, I'm going to stop. You don't then go on to have 3 more and be like, okay, maybe the 5th one is where it's all going to turn around. I'm going to love all my kids. No, try for a 6th. You never know. All right, enough backstory about my mum, because she is mainly the reason why this happened. She always bragged to her friends that she wasn't a grandmother and none of her kids have kids. Her friends would ask if there was a medical reason why we didn't have kids and things like that, but she was giddy to tell them no. She also would tell them to ask us when they see us why we don't have kids. What a weird lady. One of her friends, Diane, decides to ask me one day when I stopped to see my mum, and she was there. I said the normal, well, now's not a good time. We're not thinking about that now, or we can't afford it at the moment. I tried every which way to let her know that I wasn't trying to have kids and to steer the conversation in another direction, but she wouldn't give up. I finally said, when I stop swallowing is when I'll start having kids, and that shut her right up. My mum laughed her butt off, but she stopped telling her friends or asking me why I don't have kids. Win-win. Wow, a little bit graphic there, but I think that's just a classic traumatize them back post. Getting very annoyed by your mum just spouting a load of rubbish for years and just saying, I'm sick of this. I've been pushed to the end. I've got to try something drastic to get this to stop. And that was definitely drastic. As for rating it, this was just a pretty standard story, I reckon. I think this probably goes in at, what, number 8? Maybe even number 9. It's average, isn't it? Let's put this bottom. You know, it's funny, but that's about it. Okay, number 10. The final story of this episode. By the way, guys, I hope you've been scribbling notes down, amalgamating your list in your own head, because I want to see, by the way, at the end, what you're thinking. No, that brother is dead. Trigger warning, death of a sibling. Okay, obligatory context. 7 years ago, today is actually the anniversary. That's what inspired me to post. I'm an 18-year-old woman. 3 younger brothers and my mum were involved in a nasty car accident that left my oldest and youngest brothers in the children's ICU at a level 1 trauma center. My oldest brother, 16, was awake and alive, but had several broken bones in his legs that required surgery. My middle brother, 15, and my mum were relatively physically unharmed, but my youngest brother, 11, was severely injured and unfortunately never woke up from the coma he was in for 4 weeks. Oh my goodness me. That is a strong opening paragraph. This all happened in a very small town of about 1,000 people, so everyone knew what was going on. And when my youngest brother eventually passed away, everyone knew that too. Well, almost everyone. So the story. Several weeks after he passed, my oldest brother and I went out to the local Hobby Lobby for whatever reason. We were walking through the aisles when the mum of one of the girls I was in high school with came up to us. The dialogue is as follows. She said, "Oh my goodness, OP, I'm so glad that your brother isn't brain dead anymore and is up and walking around." I said, "That brother died. This is the other one." Crickets. "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." Random lady turns beet red and practically sprints away. I know she had good intentions, but my goodness, it isn't as good of a story as some of the others on this sub, but I giggle whenever I think about the absurdity. That time in my life was crazy enough as is, and sometimes you just gotta laugh when you feel like crying. And there we go. That was number 10. Again, I feel like not much of a put down, really, just saying the truth. But the truth sometimes is all you need to say. And the fact that she said the word brain dead is like so bad. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to rank this. I'm not sure it's going to rank as highly as some of the other stories in this episode. In fact, it definitely isn't going to. It might split the father-in-laws. It really might split the father-in-laws. This was a good burn, it was, but that's about all it was. How do I rank this? I mean, this is more clever, which I love. The last one, number 10, is just more like, well, no, my brother actually died. But that is more hard-hitting. So I'm gonna split. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna split the father-in-laws, and this story, number 10, is gonna go in at number 7, and that is going to complete our list. Okay, so that is the end of this episode. Let's just go over my list from bottom to top and yeah, see if I want to change anything. Number 10, we've got swallowing. Now, that was very funny, but that's probably about all it was. I think it's all right there, to be fair. Number 9, we've got the teacher. I don't really understand how that guy, obviously girls will be going through puberty around that sort of age, and that, you know, sometimes menstruating can be extremely hard on the body. Like, how do you not that? Surely you're taught about this as a man in a school with girls. Idiotic. But yeah, number 9, I'm happy with that. Number 8, father-in-law burn. It was good. It was clever, as I just said, but you know, it wasn't special. 7, brain dead. I'm happy with that there. Number 6 is the creepy father-in-law. I've got that as high as I do, not because the revenge was great, just because I feel like that guy needed to be put down. I mean that in more ways than one. Like, he probably should be shot. Dignitas is calling, mate. Answer the phone. Number 5, Jewish. I've written that down as Jewish. I'm not quite sure about that, but anyway. Holocaust jokes, they're funny. Okay? In the right context. Not in public, where people could get offended by them. They're also not that funny. That was a joke in and of itself, but they can be funny if well set up. My sort of mantra with humor is that you've got to laugh at everything, unless it's too soon. I've been to a few concentration camps in my time, and goodness me, are they funny. Dark humor. Number 4, scammer. I'm happy with that there because I do hate scammers. They are terrible people. Number 3, sailor. That is just elite. That probably is the cleverest one of all. The fact that he doesn't have a thumb and he's just like quickly thought about that and just whipped it out. Obviously, he hasn't lost his thumb from sucking it, unless he has. And then if that was the case, then it wouldn't be that clever. It would just be quite sad, and you'd have to admire his sucking ability. Was he gay? It's important context that I'd love to know. Number 2, cancer. I think it's got to be as high as that. Very, very serious. And yeah, you can't have people just doubling down on the fact that your dad's ill and therefore can't play golf, and actually know he should play golf. The fact that he quit his job as well, phenomenal. And number 1, harassment, because the balls, ironically, that it takes of you, OP, that girl, to do what you did in your full classroom and cause a full-on assembly about sexual harassment is just elite. Definitely number 1. And that concludes my list. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not? I actually really enjoyed that video. I might do this again in future, because when you have quite a few short posts, I can't just really like read them all and not rank them. It's a natural thing that I do anyway, so yeah, let me know down below. A lawyer's pro-revenge on a landlord. Landlords are jerks, generally speaking. Everyone knows that. But if you think residential landlords are bad, they are nothing compared to commercial landlords. Landlords of commercial buildings are some of the cruelest, nastiest people I've ever come across. This revenge tale is about a commercial landlord and how I dealt with him. Back in the 90s, sometimes I'd go for lunch at this restaurant in the basement of our building. The place was called The Vault because it had a massive bank vault that had always been there, dating back to the days before the place was turned into a restaurant. The vault was so huge that they could see a couple of tables in there, and you could eat dinner surrounded by rows of old, gleaming safe deposit boxes. One day I was there for lunch and the owner took me aside. "The landlord's driving me nuts," he said. "The landlord drives everyone nuts." I was a subtenant in the same building, sharing space with an old lawyer, Aaron, and the landlord was always causing us trouble. I'd already had a few run-ins with him and we hated each other on site. In most jurisdictions, commercial landlords don't need court orders to get you out. Instead, they just change the locks and you find out about it when you show up and your key doesn't work. Every time our landlord had a dispute with anyone, which was often, he'd always threaten to change the locks. He keeps demanding all this stuff for extra rent, and it's really weird because a lot of it's really old. The restaurant owner showed me a letter the landlord had served on him earlier that day. I looked over the demand and read a list of expenses for snow removal and parking lot repair and common area flooring and all kinds of trash going back years. I read it all the way to the end, and there it was. The usual clause saying he was going to change the locks if the tenant didn't pay this and do that. From the wording of the demand, it looks like you've been fighting a while. Why did you wait before consulting a lawyer? I asked one of the lawyers I know and he said it's hopeless. He told me the lawyer's name. It was a guy I knew with a trashy real estate practice who'd resorted to taking little legal aid cases to keep the lights on when the market tanked in '89. "Did you do something to make the landlord hate you?" I asked. Because this is a bit over the top, even for our jerk landlord. "He knows I'm moving the restaurant. I think he's trying to grab as much money as possible before I go. Plus, he's giving me grief over the vault." "He won't let you take it with you?" "Are you kidding? It weighs almost 100 tons and I don't need it. But the lease says I have to remove it and that I also have to restore the building to what it was before there was a vault. That would cost a fortune. The jerk landlord says if I leave the vault behind when I move, he'll sue." "Send your lease up to my office and let me look it over," I said. I finished my lunch and when I got back to my office, the lease was waiting for me. It was just as bad as the restaurant owner said. The lease was a renewal of a renewal of an assignment of a renewal, the original documents dating back to shortly after World War II when a bank first leased the place and the vault was installed. Somehow, the landlord had suckered the restaurant into taking over a lease that left him liable to remove a bank vault at the end of the term. That is crazy. No big deal, I thought. The restaurant can default and all the landlord can do is sue a shell company. But when I got to the last page of the lease, there was a guarantee clause. The restaurant owner had personally guaranteed the lease and he was on the hook for removing a vault weighing 100 tons and then fixing the place up. It would cost a fortune. To be fair, moral of the story so far is you've got to read the contract in full for anything like this because, wow, being personally liable for a 100-ton vault is crazy. The case was hopeless, of course. That was obvious right away. But then I thought about the jerk landlord with his demands and his threats and his rent hikes, and I asked my brain to do me a solid, which it promptly did. I picked up the phone and called the restaurant owner. "I'm screwed, right? You're calling me to say there's no way out. That's what my commercial lawyer already said, but I just thought I'd ask." "Well, I can save you, but it's going to cost." "How much?" $5,000 in legals and another G note for the agent. "Agent? What kind of agent?" "Real estate. Send up a check, certified, and leave the rest to me." The check hit my desk in less than an hour. I went to Aaron's office. "I need a real estate agent," I said. "You buying a house?" "Nope." "Selling a house?" "Nope." By this point, I'd been sharing space with Aaron for almost 5 years and he knew me pretty well. "You pulling one of your stunts again?" he asked. "Yep, but nothing that will get you into trouble." "Alright, I know a guy." Aaron knew all kinds of guys, and that's one of the reasons he eventually got disbarred. But he knew a guy, and he gave me the agent's name and number, and the next day I paid the agent a visit. I told him what I needed, and we agreed to terms. I gave him some papers and the cash for his fee. A few days later, I was again at the vault for lunch. The owner saw me walk in and greeted me himself. "The landlord's here," he said. Why? For lunch, and to be a jerk. Let's sit in the vault room so I don't have to look at his face. He took me to the vault room, and with the door almost completely closed, we had a consultation while we ate pasta and drank red wine. That's pretty elite, by the way, I've got to say. Imagine that. Sitting in a vault, having pasta, drinking red wine. That's like movie scene right there, but I guess the circumstances aren't great, to be honest. So I said, we're making demand on the landlord, munching on spaghetti carbonara. Demand? What are we demanding? I pulled a document out of my briefcase and passed it to him while I sipped my wine. We're demanding that the jerk landlord release all the restaurant equipment, all the fixtures, the ovens, the freezers, the ventilation, everything you need to run a restaurant. The lease exempts all that stuff. He can't stop me taking what I want. The only thing that matters is the vault, and of course, I don't want that. But I shook my head. You need the vault, I said. And we're demanding that he release the bank vault as well. We're insisting that he let you take it out within 7 business days. You think you can beat the landlord with reverse psychology? You think if you treat him like a 2-year-old, you can manipulate him into doing what you want? Well, we'll find out soon enough. He's had the demand for a couple of days now. The restaurant owner dropped his wine glass and it shattered on the marble floor. You already gave it to him, he said. He got up, swung open the vault door, and called for the waiter to clean up the mess. Let's see what the landlord has to say, I told him, and we walked over to the landlord's table. The landlord was a big, beefy man with a big appetite. He sat alone, eating wolfishly and with his hands. My client needs an answer today, I said. The landlord looked up at me as he chewed noisily. I'm the vault's lawyer, I said. I gave you a demand the other day. My client needs an answer right now. He needs the vault for a new place, and he's got to make arrangements. Your client could forget about the bank vault, he said, wiping his massive greasy hands on an already soiled napkin. But you can't do that, I said. My shock was feigned, but the restaurant owner's jaw dropped for real. The landlord laughed at us. I'm the landlord. I can do what I want. I'm going to need that in writing because my client might sue, I said. Sue all you like, the landlord told me. Sue till you're blue in the face. He told me that I'd have a formal response by the day's end, and then he told me to go away and let him finish his lunch. When the letter arrived from the landlord, claiming ownership over the bank vault, I brought it downstairs and showed it to my client. How the heck did you do that? Trade secret, I said. The following month, the restaurant moved out and the place was empty, and that was too bad because I'd always liked eating at the vault. Now the restaurant was in a new location 20 minutes away. They called the new place The Vault, and they'd preserved the vibe of the old place. It was very similar, except they didn't have the bank vault. The bank vault, all 100 tons of it, was where it had always been, in the basement of the building where I rented space. I showed up for work a little after that, and Aaron collared me. The landlord's looking for you, he said. Oh yeah? What about? He's really angry. He said his deal fell through. Deal? He was supposed to rent the place downstairs to a new tenant, a bank or a credit union or something like that. They were supposed to come in to sign a lease, but they didn't show up. And what's that got to do with me? I said to Aaron. And I said the same thing again to the landlord when he managed to track me down a couple of days later. I know you were behind this, he said, his jowls quivering. I know it was you. That offer from the agent, it was all BS. Just a trick to make me keep the vault so that your client could sneak out of the place and leave that freaking bank vault behind. I'm gonna sue. If you're looking for counsel, I think I'm gonna have to declare a conflict. I'm gonna sue the restaurant and that agent, and I'm gonna sue you. He stormed off. But the landlord didn't sue. Of course he didn't. He didn't have a contract to sue on, only a vague letter of intent that I drafted, enough to hook a greedy landlord who was used to having his way. The offer he'd received was non-binding, incapable of acceptance without the signing of a formal lease, which of course never got signed. When I left Aaron's place a year later, the downstairs was still unoccupied, with a sad for rent sign sitting in the window, starting to look faded. So there we go. That is without a doubt one of the best revenge stories I've read in a long time. That was brilliant from beginning to end. What might have been potentially a kind of boring topic, you know, landlords and contracts and that sort of stuff, maybe not the most entertaining, so well written and really good. This guy clearly is just a horrible, greedy man that, yeah, any sort of idea of, oh, can I make some more money from a new bank potentially coming in? He was all for it, not even checking if they were even a real bank in the first place or doing any sort of due diligence there and working out what was going on. Doesn't really surprise me when he's just as selfish as this, forcing somebody to take a 100-ton vault with them or he'll sue. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. I guess this comes down to you have to leave the property in the same way it was when you first got it. But I don't know how anyone would realistically know that, first of all, there was a huge 100-ton vault, and then secondly, that you had to get rid of it when you left, because when you moved in, it was there, right? But again, as was explained in this one, going back to the Second World War and having a contract carryover from there is extremely petty. I do kind of stand by what I said, though. I do think with all these things, you've got to read literally, I was going to say word for word, but almost letter for letter. Like the punctuation even is extremely important in these sort of contracts to make sure you're not getting absolutely shafted like this guy did. But yeah, if it wasn't for you, OP, I mean, that would have been terrible. But thank goodness that people like you exist and just exploited the guy that was exploiting this unlucky individual. Steal furniture, almost lose your job. So my dad owns a house that he's been renting for some time now. The tenants that lived there were, for the most part, decent people who my dad thought were trustworthy. That all changed about 2 months into the tenancy when the tenant refused to pay the month's rent. My dad showed some leniency and gave them another month to pay up what was owed, but they didn't pay a thing. By this point, my dad, frustrated by the whole situation and being 2 months out of rent money, offered them a deal. Leave the house ASAP and then only pay half the money owed. They countered with a different agreement. They would leave the house in a clean state with all of their furniture left behind as compensation. My dad, wanting to just be done with them, agreed. Cut to when my dad gets to the house, finding the place in a mess with none of the furniture left behind, including the furniture that belonged to my dad in the first place. The 2 sofas that my dad owned were left behind, but they were trashed and left in the shed. When my dad confronted them, asking for them to pay up the full amount that the furniture was worth, he was met with a promise of payment after 2 weeks, which he didn't believe. And when he requested they pay earlier, he was met with, "Good luck getting your money," followed by laughing emojis. This made my dad angry, and he decided that he wasn't going to let this slide. My dad knew that the tenant was a Christian pastor of a church, and his son also had some job related to the church. My dad contacted the church and explained everything, from how they hadn't paid him rent money to stealing the furniture and trashing the place. The church was somewhat interested about this behavior. The next day, my dad gets an angry phone call from the tenant's son, cursing at him, asking him what he thought he was doing, contacting the church, saying he was being unfair. My dad hung up on him, only for him to attempt to ring 10 times afterwards. From what we could piece together, the church had told the pastor that if he didn't settle things with my dad, him and his son would lose their jobs. My dad received the full amount for the furniture that same day and agreed to back off. My dad later said it was never about the money, but the way this guy treated him and his values. My dad, being a Christian himself, was disappointed. There we go, a nice little one to finish on there. I do have to say that it's embarrassing that these healthy, Christian people who work for the church have this attitude. Does that not go exactly against what they're preaching? Surely it does. Like, how can they go to work each day? Like, you're a pastor, and you are going to work each day preaching, knowing that you're doing this at the same time. How can you live with yourself? I think it's kind of people like this sometimes that give not just the church, not just the Christian church, but just religion in general a bad name, when in reality it's just these horrible individuals doing things. But then you hear stories like this quite often, and you're just like, why? How can somebody be in this position and do something like this? But I guess it happens all over the world in every single sector. But yeah, normally, like, I thought that the church would usually pay for their residents, but I don't know. Maybe they weren't, or maybe they were, and these two were just, pocketing that and then just, using it for whatever they wanted. I will say though, shout out your dad, because he is a very, very good man. Teacher insists I talk to my mother. This was back in school when I was 15, 16-ish. I'd moved to the area suddenly and had a lot of accommodations, so most of the teachers didn't know specifically what was going on in my life, but most knew it was pretty messed up, and there was an ongoing police investigation. I guess this teacher missed the memo. I was talking about prom tickets and how I collected them as I qualified for free ones. I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, so I'm kind of paraphrasing. My teacher said to me, "You just need to get your mum to email to claim as many tickets as you need." I replied, "Okay, I'll ask my dad to do that." She then mentioned a few other things, but every time she ignored my subtle corrections and asked me to talk to my mum. After like 4 times, I lost my temper and went, "Alright, since you insist, I'll drive for 2 hours, find my highly abusive mother in police custody and reconnect with her just to ask her permission for some prom tickets. Or I could ask my dad at home. She just went completely silent, and a couple of nearby teachers gave her judgmental looks, and I walked away. Teachers should honestly know better than to assume all kids have parents, especially both. There was another time, like a month after I moved, where we had an English class assignment to read and write poems about our mother. On Mother's Day, so it was already a pretty sore day for me. I just left. Should have written some poems about how she beat me for laughing wrong to teach them not to do that sort of trash. Yeah, that is extremely poor from that teacher. I mean, it's just one of those things. If you are a teacher and you have a classroom full of children, surely you shouldn't be talking generally about these sort of things. I mean, look, maybe you can, but on the whole, you've got to be so careful because who knows what you might say that could horribly upset someone. I mean, you don't know. Clearly, this woman doesn't know the individual circumstances of all her students. I think, to be fair, she should, but for whatever reason, she doesn't. And I'm thinking about my own education here. I can't actually remember doing sort of like Father's Day or Mother's Day stuff in particular, even in primary school or like even back in kindergarten. I mean, I don't remember exactly in reception, but I don't remember it. And I feel like the teachers would know exactly what was going on with their students' parents, so they wouldn't do anything that could be as traumatic as this, probably for that reason. But yeah, terrible from her, great from you, OP. I mean, you could also argue that she's just being misogynistic anyway. Like why does she keep insisting that you ask your mum? Because that's just assigning a gender role, isn't it? It's ridiculous, especially in the modern day. There's a lot about this teacher to dislike, I will say. So yeah, I'm happy you got your own back, OP. Keep touching my wheelchair when I've told you no, get slapped and shunned. I am a wheelchair user. Wheelchairs are considered extensions of our bodies, and touching wheelchairs without the user's permission is a no-no. Moving someone's wheelchair without asking is an even bigger no-no. I'd explained to a classmate again and again that it was rude, inappropriate, and even harassment that he kept touching my chair or moving me without asking, and when I told him not to, not only did he keep doing it, but he was insistent that he had the right to do so. I'd even gone as far as to illustrate the issue to him by getting permission to touch his shoulder or elbows and moving him out of the way, or leaving my hand on his shoulder and leaving it there until it was awkward. Even this, though, didn't dissuade him or change his entitled insistence that he had every right to touch my chair whenever he wanted to, even when I'd told him no. Anyway, usually he'd let go, kind of scoff, and move on. This was over the course of most of a college semester. It was a voice class at a community college, so there were less than 20 of us. So our professor had witnessed many of these incidents. One day when he touched my chair again and wouldn't move his hand when I politely asked him to stop, he refused to let go, and again insisted that he wasn't doing anything wrong and that he had the right to do so, it wasn't a big deal, etc. By this point I'd had enough. He continued to touch me, my chair, and therefore an extension of my person. So I turned my chair around lightning fast, grabbed his stunned hand hard enough hopefully to bruise it, I've got good upper body and hand grip strength, pulled him down as harshly as I could, and then slapped him in the face as hard. The rest of the class heard the slap and his pained and surprised yelp, and they turned to look at us. He screamed and ran over to the professor to whine that I'd grabbed him and hit him. The professor just kind of shrugged and said something along the lines of, "Well, she told you to stop touching her." He kept whining about it to the professor that I should be punished for assaulting him, etc., only for her and the rest of the class to just ignore him that day, and then for the rest of the semester. Mind you, I'm a very chilled person, unless you count childlike excitement, glee about life, and I'm never violent, as well as being patient to a fault, so I don't retaliate nearly ever or easily, but frankly, this was self-defense, pure and simple. In any case, the whole class had heard me explain time and time again not to touch me or my chair, and how and why it was inappropriate, and they'd asked if I needed help, but I'd always declined. To me personally, it's not that big of a deal if someone who doesn't know better touches my wheelchair. I just explain why it's wrong. But he was so entitled that he had the right to and wouldn't take no for an answer. That was what made that an actual issue. And I'd been much more patient than he deserved. He wasn't very bright, but he wasn't disabled or autistic. I'd asked about the autism in a polite way by sharing that I'm autistic. But even if he were, he'd be high functioning enough for his action to be inexcusable. At the end of class that day, I got a lot of high fives and he kept his distance from me, occasionally glancing over at me fearfully. Good prudence, frankly. The last third or so of the semester, nobody wanted to work with him when we paired up in groups of 3 to 4 to work on songs together. People for the most part didn't love working with him before this anyway, but after it became clear that the professor was on my side and not his, it was if he was invisible. Okay, now on the one hand, while I'm happy that the professor was on your side and this kid just got ignored for the rest of the semester, I do have to say, where was your professor before it got to this stage? Like, why are they letting you slap him? Why are they letting it get that far? Like, that should never have been allowed to happen. How can the professor genuinely think, okay, you know what, I see all this going on, but I'm just going to let it happen and let this student, OP, eventually slap one of my other students, and that would be a good resolution, a good thing to happen, and that's the way to sort it, rather than stopping it at source and saying you can't do this before letting it get violent. It's weird teaching, I gotta say. Like, you're just being harassed all semester and they're just leaving you to it. Really odd. Look, don't get me wrong, this guy's clearly a POS, and it's good that he got what he deserved in the end. But my main takeaway is that Professor has to do more here. Joke's on you, he's dead. A little context before I start. 6 years ago, my dad died of terminal brain cancer after 2 years of treatment. I was 9, turning 10 that summer. My mum was absolutely devastated, but she stayed strong for my brothers and me. Also, we live in France, and it's an advanced country, but we live in the backwaters, where there are still a lot of misogynists and homophobes. And just to add a little more intrigue, it's a 5-day bank holiday weekend here in France, and it was nearing the end of the workers' shift. Now, my brothers aren't at home much, and I'm at boarding school, so we didn't need our huge car anymore. My mum sold it and replaced it with a brand new Hyundai electric car. It's a lot smaller than what we're used to storage-wise, so she wanted to buy a roof box for it. She went into the shop and asked a female worker where she could find one. The woman called over her male co-workers to help my mum out. She asked them what she asked the woman. Could I have a roof box for my car? They stroll over. The leader smirked as he says, "Is it for your husband?" His friends laughed, and so did their female co-worker. But my mum didn't even smile. Instead, she grimaced and said, "Well, he died 6 years ago, so I don't think so." The guy was mortified. As she told me this story in the car after picking me up from school, I was so proud of her because she was able to make some light of our trauma. Also, she taught a misogynistic idiot a lesson. Well, there we go. Second case of misogyny in this episode. I think this one was probably worse than the first. Like, trying to get a cheap laugh out of it and then just being hit by that. What a way to bring you back down to earth. Again, massive shout out to your mum though. I mean, you've got to take a leaf out of her book and start remembering these comebacks for when it sadly inevitably happens to you later in life. But the fact that she can deal with it so well and not kind of like cower away. Like, she's not afraid of talking about this sort of thing. She's not ashamed by it, doesn't seem. She just wants to, you know, put people in their place, despite the fact that it's obviously a horrible, horrible, traumatic thing that's happened to your family. So yeah, respect for saying something uncomfortable, which I'm sure she didn't enjoy saying, to be honest, or even like thinking about. But this guy and his mates have led her to say it. Guy asked me why I'm wearing a mask. Some background information first. My city was mostly anti-mask through all of COVID and continues to be. I don't agree with this, but it's a smaller town, so it was easy for people to get away with. I actually wore masks before COVID because I suffer from dermatillomania. Basically, a mental condition where I struggle with peeling off sections of my skin. Oh wow, that sounds terrible. I was shopping at the grocery store with my husband and we were wearing masks. I turn around the corner of an aisle and a man looks at me and asks, "Now what are you wearing a mask for?" He was loud and clearly looking for an argument, so I just tried to brush it off and say, "I have a medical condition." I tried to look for my husband, but he was still in the other aisle. The man then asks, "Oh, what kind of medical condition?" I'm blown away by the audacity of this guy, but at this point, I hear my husband come up behind me and I suddenly feel courageous, or maybe dumb. I pull down my mask and show him the rest of my face. He sees the wounds and some bandages. He looks embarrassed and quietly says, "Oh, honey," before walking away. My husband immediately turns me around and hugs me, since he worries about my self-esteem, asking if I'm feeling okay and such and what that was about. I just answered, smiling, "Well, he asked." I pulled my mask back up and we continued shopping. I realized after that I should have just kept my mask on, but it felt good somehow. I also don't know if I was right to call it a medical condition or not, but I kind of panicked in the moment. This was in early 2021, so 3 years of therapy later, I've been doing much better with my condition. I don't pick as often or as much skin as I used to. Now, I usually don't even wear masks anymore to hide it. I wish I had this kind of confidence back when I had my grandmother say I looked like a meth addict. Well, you know what? I feel like grandmothers just do say stuff like that. Don't take anything from it. They're just all crazy. No offense. And I know that my grandmother is actually probably watching right now. And I don't mean you, Granny. Trust me. Anyway, back to the story now. I feel like, OP, you've done extremely well there. And you know what you're saying about maybe it was bad or you didn't feel comfortable or whatever, that it felt good? It should feel good. You completely killed this person phenomenally well and embarrassed him. So well done. And also, you don't have to keep your mask on. I mean, he did ask you to take it off and you did that. So, I mean, you're just doing what he says. Excellent stuff. You want proof I'm injured? Okay, this happened about 5 years ago, so some details are a bit blurry, but I remember most of what happened. About 5 years ago, I had some major anger issues caused by other undiagnosed mental issues. I'm okay now and I'm properly medicated. I ended up slamming my door, which caused my mirror to break and slice my left leg open. Stupid mistake, I know. I've learned since then. I ended up going to hospital to get about 48 stitches. I had to miss a couple of days of school because the doctor told me to take it easy for 2 days. When I finally went back to school, I had crutches because I couldn't put any weight on the injured leg at all. I got an elevator key and I needed people to help me with my books. I kept pain meds with the nurse because, again, 48 stitches. She never liked me for some reason. So when I went to get half a pill during lunch, she refused to give it to me. Here is how the exchange went. You don't need any meds, you're fine, the nurse said. No, I do need them. I'm in a lot of pain. I'll stop faking and go back to lunch. Oh, and leave your crutches here. You don't need them either. Now, I was in a lot of pain, so I was already not in a good mood. This really angered me. Do your dang job and give me my meds, then I'll go back. I have an ungodly amount of stitches in my leg, and I'm already upset enough without you being rude. Well, how do I know you're actually injured? You could just have a bandage around your leg. What, you want proof? Yes. So without hesitation, I untied the gauze on my leg, removed the gauze pack, and showed her my stitched wound. All the colour drained from her face, and she looked like she was going to throw up. Is this good enough for you? After a moment, she silently unlocked her medicine cabinet and handed me my painkiller bottle, which was literally just extra strength ibuprofen, not opioids. So I've got no idea why she was so protective of it. Take your pill and go back to lunch. I smiled at her as sweetly as possible. Oh, well, I can't go back now. My bandages aren't sterile anymore, so I need to change them. I brought extra bandages just in case, so this wasn't a big deal. She still looked nauseous at this point, so I changed my bandages as slowly as I could, making sure she got a good look at my leg the entire time. I only had to go back to her office twice during my recovery, but each time she didn't hesitate to give me my medication. I saw her when I went to return my elevator key, and she avoided eye contact with me. She wasn't working there the following year, luckily. Well, I wonder why. Okay, now go with me on this one, guys. I do feel like there are a lot of people out there that have jobs that they're just not very good at, okay? Who knows why, but it just probably is the case. Not naming names here, I just think that is the case. However, when you're a nurse, I feel like, you need to be pretty good at your job, or at least know what you're doing. If you're a healthcare professional, you need to be providing healthcare. That's kind of the job description, and I don't think you can be bad at doing that. Otherwise, it can be potentially very dangerous. Now, I do not understand how this woman had this job in the first place when she is not giving you medication that you have to have. It's just insane. Also, the questions that she's asking you are a joke. First of all, are you actually in pain? How do I know if you're injured? Can you give me proof that you're injured? Etc, etc, etc. All three of those are ridiculous for so many reasons. First of all, you don't have to be in pain to have pain medication. If it's like prescribed to you to take 3 times a day, and you take it 3 times a day and you're never in pain, that's good. That means it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? You've been prescribed it for a reason. Secondly, are you actually injured? You could just have a bandage around your leg. Is mental. Surely she's had some form of documentation before she needs proof that you are injured, right? Like, if you go to hospital and you have 48 stitches, your school obviously should know about that. If not, something's gone terribly wrong there in communication. I don't really know why. And then thirdly, saying to somebody, I need to see proof that you have 48 stitches or that you need pain meds. is unbelievable, especially when they're coming in on crutches. I mean, look, yeah, some kids do lie about being ill, but I don't think someone would lie to this extent. I mean, maybe they would, but this is just insane. Also, just one final point. Why is she not offering to redress it for you? Like, I'm glad that, I mean, I assume she was eventually fired. The fact that she's not working there the following year leads me to believe so. But after clearly realizing that she was horribly wrong there, surely she at least could have said, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, let me do that for you, as in do my job. Not just watch you do it yourself and be nauseous. Also, she shouldn't be nauseous. She's a nurse. She should be used to that sort of stuff. Everything about this woman is just so backwards. Don't ask rude and invasive questions and you won't get called out on it. My God, this just happened. I'm still fuming. Some important context. I have a zit the size of Everest tucked in next to the corner of my eye. It's recurring and it will go away soon. It's no big deal, it's just massive. I work reception and a woman came in having made her reservation for the wrong day. No problem, I can at least look up the reservation information. While I'm doing so, she goes, "What happened to your eye?" A lovely question to ask the person trying to help you. I blink and tell her, "It's a pimple." "No way! There's no way that's just a pimple." Then I pull the saying out for the first time. I'm shocked you feel comfortable saying something like that to a total stranger. I have genetic cystic acne. But unbelievably, she doubles down. "Well, my daughter has acne too." I say nothing. "She doesn't really talk to me about it either." I double down. "Well, I don't like to talk about it. It got me made fun of when I was younger." Cue the breathy comments about how I, as well as some guys she's texting, are calling her a POS. If that's what you got from my very calm and decently polite responses, maybe you have some introspection to do. Enjoy your visit, and I hope you think twice before making comments about someone's appearance. Now, fortunately, while the cystic acne is indeed real and genetic, I wasn't ever picked on for it. At least, not until I reached adulthood, for some reason. You know what? I cannot actually believe that this woman has said, I can't believe it, my daughter has acne too, and for some reason, she doesn't like talking about it either. Yet, she's asking a total stranger about her acne. It's just, obviously, she's just so dumb. So dumb. And yes, I agree. You have a lot of introspection to do. But fair play to you, OP, again, for just saying, you know what, I'm not dealing with this. Just because I'm here to help you out, and I know I'm working reception, you're a customer, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and take that from you. You've got to know that this is just too far. You can't be asking this sort of stuff. And, you know, if you are this woman and you're thinking, why is everyone calling me a POS? It's probably because you are. That is the logical answer to that. Karen said, boys will be boys. So I return the favor. More than 20 years ago, when me and my sisters were still in elementary, our mum took us to a shopping mall for clothes and groceries. A major supermarket was attached to the mall. After everything was over, we stopped by the bookstore where us kids picked whatever books we wanted while she was picking educational books for both of us. The bookstore was also selling some physical discs for various softwares, including games. While both of us were looking into the games we wanted, a little boy of our age came next to us, opened up one of the discs, and poked my sister in the eye. My sister immediately started to cry her eyes out, and my mum rushed over to see what was happening. She scolded the little boy after hearing what happened, to which he got upset and went to grab his Karen of a mother. Karen comes over and demands to know who yelled at her son. The two ladies began to get into a shouting match. My mum argued the kids had no reason to hurt my sister like that and should be taught better. But Karen argued, boys will be boys and that he doesn't know any better. She asked my mum, why are you overreacting? I decided enough was enough. I did a frontal kick on the kid as hard as I can, making him fall on his butt. I saw there was a nice footprint imprinted on his shirt. He began to let out the most annoying cry I've ever heard. The Karen quickly rushed over to her little turd and began shouting at me. I looked her in the eye and said, boys will be boys. Why are you overreacting? She tried to argue more, but her friend, or maybe her sister, held her back and ushered her out of the store. We went to get burgers and fries afterwards, but my mum also lectured me about how violence isn't the answer. Me being a little sprouty elementary kid didn't care and rode that hype train for weeks. You know what? I actually disagree with your mum. Sometimes I feel like violence has to be the answer, otherwise people don't learn lessons, right? And take that with a lot of context, and the vast majority of the time, it's not the right thing to do. But I feel like once in a blue moon, sometimes it has to be done. Otherwise, no one's ever going to learn. Like, there are very, very few cases, very, very few, where violence should be the first response. Very, very few. But in a situation like this, where this woman is so oblivious to how heinous her children are being, spouting terrible excuses like boys will be boys. And yeah, I can imagine that this thing will continue to happen again and again because her kids aren't being parented correctly. They're not learning what's right and wrong. Perhaps this flying kick, which, let's be honest, probably didn't hurt that much, will actually sort her kids out and will stop them from doing stuff like this in the future. Like, it's educational. If a flying kick could ever be educational, this is it. I didn't look pretty enough 4 hours after my mum died. This happened a really long time ago now, but I've never seen anyone run away from a situation quite so quickly, and sometimes I do wonder what the guy thought, or if he learned his lesson. So my mum had been terminal and was in hospice care in our home. We knew time was limited. However, when I'm upset, the first thing to go to hell is my sleep schedule. I slept 2 hours that night, and I hadn't been getting much more sleep than that for the few weeks preceding this. But she ended up passing slightly before 4 the morning that this took place. So, after she passed, I decided I needed caffeine to get through the day. So when the nearest gas station opened up at 8 AM, I headed over there for some energy drinks. I likely did look a bit of a mess. It is easy to tell when I'm tired, and I was wearing college merch that was much bigger than my usual size. I get out of my car and I start shuffling through my clothes. I couldn't remember which gigantic pocket I'd put my wallet in. While I did that, this man pulls up to a pump in a very shiny car. I don't remember what he looked like, beyond that he looked a bit like a very put together game show host. This man turns to me. He was 20 feet away, so this was all said loudly, and says, "It's a shame someone so pretty can't improve everyone's day with a smile." I burst out crying, ugly crying, with the sobbing mouthing and shaking. I just went from standing there hoping I hadn't left my wallet at home to bawling in a mostly empty parking lot. I did manage to yell something like, "I'm sorry I'm not freaking pretty enough for you when my mum died 4 hours ago." The dude turned on his heels and left. Didn't pump gas, didn't go inside for coffee, didn't apologize. Just got in his car and left. I was saved from standing in the parking lot sobbing by a woman who I think was jogging and heard what the man and I said to each other, and the employee of the gas station, who were both very kind. Ah man, there we go. I mean, look, that is obviously the deepest story that we've had so far. Goodness me, I just gotta say off the bat, OP, I'm so sorry to hear about your situation and your parents passing, but also just to be in this spot and have someone do this to you. Yeah, absolutely insane. Like, to be fair to the guy, maybe he had good intentions, but you really shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. You shouldn't be putting your nose in someone else's business, especially when they have the expression that I'm sure you had, which was just, you know, being absolutely distraught. It's past the point of not smiling. Surely you look just very, very upset. I mean, from an outlooker looking in, surely you knew that something had gone wrong there. You weren't just being sad or like not smiling. I don't know. I get the feeling he came in with like a positive attitude, but ultimately, yeah, terrible thing to do. Don't assume things about other people. And I hope that this guy learned his lesson. Although I say that, a good man would have just apologized and said, "I'm so sorry. I really had good intentions. I just want people to be positive. It's my bad. I'm so sorry for your loss and that I did that. That's my fault." But actually, no, he ran away, didn't he? He ran away like a little coward. So I take it all back. He's just a disgraceful man. There we go. I will say, though, that the people that helped you in that situation, that has restored my faith in humanity. But once again, OP, I'm so sorry. Let's move on. I was getting tampons, officer. So I got pulled over one night coming back from Walmart. I definitely deserved the ticket for speeding, but the cop was asking for too much information. It was late, I was cramping, I just wanted to be home so I could stop bleeding in my pants and eat my cookies. Of course, the typical question, "Do you know how fast you were going?" "Yes, sir, 65. Where are you coming from?" "Okay, fair question, I guess. It is 12 AM. "Walmart, officer." "What were you getting at Walmart?" Okay, why do you need to know that?" "I just want to get home, my guy. But since you asked, I was getting tampons. Do you want to see them?" His eyes got wide and he walked away without saying a word. He came back to give me my ticket and he couldn't make eye contact. Most expensive box of tampons I've ever bought. However, the look on that guy's face was priceless. Now, I agree with you, OP. There's questions that as a police officer, you are obviously allowed to ask and expected to ask. The one about, do you know how fast you're going? That's a standard question, and I think that is a reasonable one. But asking, what you were buying at a shop surely is just not relevant information. Like, at all. Why would an officer ever need to know that? To be honest, I think he should have just not given you the ticket there. Just through embarrassment. Just held his hands up and said, wow, I've been completely done there. I'm not going to ticket you. There you go. Enjoy your day. But no, he still gave you a ticket. What a little rat. Yeah, I get it's the law, but come on. You effed up there. You deserve some form of karma, surely. My kid can die if I don't. I was waiting to check in at the dentist today, and some old lady started humping and such. We're in Florida, and I'm wearing a mask. Unusual, I guess, but most people just mind their own business and leave me alone. There's a few, however, who are pains about it. She looked at me and asked why I was wearing that thing on my face. Everyone knows that the virus is gone. Why am I out and about if I'm that scared? Now, I have breast cancer, and I'm not feeling great today. Mine's not terrible considering. My son, though, also has cancer, and his is bad. Grade 4 brain cancer. Oh my goodness me, OP, I'm so sorry to hear that. I just looked at her and said, my oncologist says cancer patients need to be careful about dental care. Plus, my kid can die if I don't. She turned sheet white and left me alone the rest of the time we were in the waiting room together. I'm pretty sure the dental hygienist who came out to get me was purposely a bit louder than normal, asking about how my son was doing. Now, this is pretty similar, I think, to the third post we had in this episode. Once again, why are you sticking your nose in someone else's business when you just don't need to be doing it? And also, what is wrong with wearing a mask? If I see someone wearing a mask out and about these days, I say fair play to them, thank you. Either you are ill and you're protecting the rest of the population from getting your illness, or you don't want to get ill yourself. Both great things. Why is that a negative thing? Oh, COVID is done now? Well, first of all, it isn't. Like, my granny had COVID a couple of weeks ago, and the only reason she didn't have it that badly is because she's still getting vaccinated. And secondly, who cares? Let people wear masks. My wife is dead. When my son was born, I was a stay-at-home dad for the first year of his life. We also lived in New York City, and I loved taking him out into the city to do things. Nearly every subway ride, though, I'd have some kind of encounter with a woman or group of women, usually boomers, who would say some variation of giving mum the day off, or so nice to see dad's babysitting once in a while. Now, first off, it's not possible to babysit your own kid. That's called parenting. But second, I was the primary caregiver. Mum was at work, I stayed home with the boy. It got old real fast. But I found a very nice trick that shut these old biddies down real quick. Anytime someone would ask if I was babysitting or giving mum the day off, my face would fall. I'd get real quiet, and after taking a moment to compose myself, I'd say something like, my wife died during childbirth, or my wife is currently undergoing radiation treatment for stage 4 cancer. She's at a clinic in California. I haven't seen her in 6 months. Or my favorite, his mum abandoned us when he was just 6 weeks old. She'd been using drugs pretty heavily while she was pregnant, and so he was born addicted. I didn't hear from his mother for months after she left, until one day I found out she'd overdosed and died. This little guy is all I've got left of her. But we carry on best we can. That shuts them up real quick. Now, I will say that perhaps given the stories we've read earlier in this episode, this might not be like the best thing to do. I think like lying about people dying in your family is maybe a little bit too much, but I completely understand why you did it, OP, and it did have the desired effect. And again, like, you don't have to deal, or you shouldn't have to deal with this complete and utter sexism every single day when you're just being a good dad. So if that's the best way that you thought about, you know, dealing with people like this, then I hold my hands up. There you go. I mean, if it does happen every single day, then that must get unbelievably annoying. I mean, I will say that saying that his mum abandoned us when he was just 6 weeks old, she'd been using drugs pretty heavily, and so he was born addicted. I mean, imagine hearing that. Like, you've just said, oh, it's so nice to see a man doing the job for once, babysitting, and then you hear the guy say that. You've got to be questioning your life at that point. Yeah, it's had the desired effect. Comment on my butt at work. Let me make this uncomfortable for us both. I was working as a front-end cashier for a local grocery store. It was around the time of my lunch break, so my line was closed off after this last customer. Grizzled, 60, 70-year-old bearded guy. I am in my early 20s, a feminine cashier. As I finish ringing up his purchases and he goes to slide his card, the card machine doesn't work. I tell him to keep swiping until it beeps. We were mid-change to a new sales system, so this was a common occurrence. I bend under my till to clean and organize while he's sliding his card. As I'm bent over, his card dings. Sweet, let's wrap this up so I can go eat. Instead, oh, I liked it when you did that. I'm still under the till. I roll my eyes. And then inspiration strikes. Petty inspiration. I come up. Did what, sir? When you bent over, it worked. I had a confused face. Why? Well, it liked when you bent over. Why would it like that I bent over? It's a boy card. Boys like it when girls bend over. Sorry, I've got to say, this is the creepiest dude I've ever seen on Reddit. What? But why? I ask again. Well, they just do. At this point, I'm gleeful on the inside. But why? I don't understand. The old man is getting flustered. His face gets red. He mumbles, Mom, you're making me a little uncomfortable. I drop the dumb act. I lean forward across the check stand and look right into his eyes. And how do you think I feel when a man makes an unwanted comment on my backside while I'm at work? He is 20 shades of red, stammering. I meant no disrespect. It was supposed to be a compliment. I put on a very stern face. Well, it was disrespectful. Please don't comment on women's bodies when they work. I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. He collects his bag and leaves without another word. Gleeful vindication. Good. Now maybe you won't go and harass other people at their frickin' jobs. Well, yeah, creepiest guy ever. Literally the creepiest guy ever. Well done, OP, for not just being quiet. I mean, it must be pretty, horribly uncomfortable in situations like this. And you just want to stay quiet and just say, okay, fine, I'll ring you up, go, leave the store. But no, you did the right thing. I mean, fair play. It's very brave to do that, courageous. I can't even imagine being in this situation. Just try and do your job and getting harassed by people 50 years older than you. I mean, by the way, brother, you got no chance anyway. What are you doing? Go home to your old people's home and just sit in your chair and do the Sudoku, my friend. And by the way, I quite like Sudokus. So that's not a slight on people that do Sudokus, but it is a slight on creeps. I served my sister-in-law a child's plate after she broke multiple heirloom china plates. I caught her breaking them on camera. My husband and I have family dinners at our house every month or so with our family. I have some sets of fine china that I like to switch out between the seasons that I've inherited from my grandmother. When we have our get-togethers, I serve dinner on these plates. My mother-in-law compliments them every time. My sister-in-law, however, has made comments to me that they're not her style. I honestly didn't think twice about her comments up until this past February, when one of my plates was put in the sink, broken. I chalked it up to an accident. In April, we had another dinner. This time, my sister-in-law was carrying both her and her boyfriend's plates to the sink and accidentally dropped them both. Again, no biggie at all. In May, she broke 2 more plates, and in June, she broke a plate and a cup. At this point, I was catching on. I brought up these concerns to my husband, and he brushed them off as accidents. I told my mum, and she said that she thought that my sister-in-law was doing it on purpose, and she got me a camera to put in the dining room. In July, we had dinner, and I had an opportunity arise. My mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and her boyfriend joined us for dinner. While our plates were still on the table, my mother-in-law asked how my plants were doing, and I said I'd show her. I told my husband to follow us outside so he could show her the plant that he's growing, leaving my sister-in-law alone with her boyfriend. When we came back inside, 5 minutes later, her plate was broken. When they left, I pulled up the camera footage. I saw her stand up when we walked out, peek around the corner, and then throw the plate on the ground. I kept this video to myself. All I'll say at this point is, are you sure she's not Greek and it's just tradition? I jest. This brings me to this past weekend. We had our family dinner and we were joined by my in-laws, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend, as well as my parents, siblings and niece. I served everyone, saving evil sister-in-law for last. I brought her food out on a child's plate with a sippy cup and got those kids' silverware with the plastic handles. She looked at me confused and said, I think you mixed my plates up with your niece's plates. And I said, no. My niece is responsible enough to eat on a grown-up's plate. If you're going to act like a child in my home, I'm going to treat you like a child in my home. She tried to play coy, but I had my iPad ready and I played the video to everyone at the table. She started sobbing. She swiped the kid's plate off the table and stormed out. My in-laws both apologized and offered to pay for replacement plates, but I told them not to worry about it. Despite this, we still had a nice time. When everyone left, my husband told me I was out of line and cruel. But I told him that this has been happening for months, and I've told him it was bothering me multiple times. It's Wednesday, he's still being a little cold to me, and I also got a text from my sister-in-law's boyfriend asking me if I'd apologize to her because I really embarrassed her. I sent him the video again, and he left me on red. My husband just called me to ask if I was taunting her boyfriend because his sister called him crying that I was. Now, somebody has asked in the comments down below, inquiring minds need to know, why would she break your plates? Because she doesn't like to eat off something that's not her style? Yeah, I agree. That is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. How can you have a style of plate that you like or dislike at someone else's house? Opie replied, I would like to know too. I'll probably never get a straight answer though. My husband apologized, and now we're bouncing back and forth off of the whys, and we're kind of circling around to the boyfriend. My in-laws say that's when they've noticed a behavior change. She's gotten into trouble since dating him. They act like teenagers. My husband is saying exactly what I was thinking was happening. He's trying not to blame or pin anything on her because she has been behaving differently over the past few months. She got caught shoplifting, and her boyfriend also got caught stealing and went to jail. No diagnosis that I've ever known of, but the family is now saying there could be a deeper issue or possibly a substance issue. Someone else also commented, I'm glad that your husband apologized. What made him come around, if I may ask? OP said, my mother-in-law. At least I'm assuming. She texted me that they were on the phone when he was on his way home. That's my bet. I really want to talk to him about all of this, but I don't want to overwhelm him, especially because he's been a little distant. I think the whole thing is overwhelming for him. He told me his sister called him 4 times. I'm keeping it low-key for now, but I'm going to try and get some answers about the plate breaking. All right, then there we go. Quite a long story. The good thing about r/TraumatizeThemBack is that you do get some short, fun posts. I don't know if fun's the best word there, but snappy little ones that you don't have to concentrate on too much. And then you get some longer, more in-depth ones like this. I just want to know what is wrong with the plates. I really do. How can the style of a plate have that much of an effect on someone's life to the extent that they want to break them? I mean, absolutely insane. Shout out your mother-in-law, by the way. Like, what a goat, saying, you know what, I know what's going on here. Here's a secret camera. Set it up. Let's watch this back together. Oh, actually, it was your mum, wasn't it? But still, I feel like your mum and your mother-in-law both did well here. Your sister-in-law, less so. I do kind of feel like your husband, though, took a lot of convincing here. When she'd broken 6 or 7 pieces of heirloom china, yet, apparently, according to him, you're in the wrong for embarrassing her. Where's the logic there, my friend? I mean, yes, it's good that he's come around, but it should not have taken him that long. Mother tries to spank teenager and regrets it. I'm well into being an adult today, and this is a story of how I stopped my mother from ever spanking me again. My mother has always been fond of physical punishment. She's a pusher, slapper, hit with random objector, and a spanker. I got spanked a lot for things I did, and things that she perceived I did. She spanked me well into being a teenager as well. I was 16 or 17 at the time, and my wet towel from showering was on my bed. My mother always lost her mind over not hanging a towel properly, and frankly, this was a mistake I made often. She came in while I was dressing, saw the towel, and she immediately grabbed and spun me to start spanking. I'll never know what devil took over, but it was a devil that had been needed much sooner in my life. Instead of crying out in pain, I said, and I can't quite believe I'm about to do this, guys, but I will, and I'm going to give it my all here. Oh! She was confused and asked, what sort of smart-ass response was that? My response was, well, after so many spankings, I was wondering when I would start to enjoy it. She looked horrified, left my room, and I called down the hallway, come back, we can take our relationship to the next level. I was never spanked again. I cannot believe I've just read that. That is obviously going to be the conclusion of this episode immediately. Well, despite the fact that I just actually cannot believe what I've just done there, and I'm really sorry if any family members are watching this or listening to this. It's probably my lowest moment in my life so far. That is the perfect example of r/TraumatizeThemBack. Your mum now, surely, is living with that trauma. In the back of her mind, yes, she might have thought you were joking, long term, but she's always going to have those lingering doubts. Did my son enjoy sexually me spanking him? Makes you think. Really, really does. Stalk my daughters, I'll stalk you back. This was a few years ago. I think 2018, 19, pre-COVID at any rate. So I'm a bit fuzzy on ages, but I think my sister and I am a woman by the way, were 30 or 31 and 21 or 22 respectively. But basically, we were followed by a strange man. We were on holiday at the time and we'd left our mum in a pub to go and grab a couple of cute things from a shop and to go play with a local stray cat who lived at one of the squares. She's since been adopted by a family. It's a place we've been going to since we were both babies, so we know our way around blindfolded and we generally feel safe in the area that we were in. Now on our walk back to the pub, we realised we were being followed by somebody we didn't know. He wasn't being subtle about it. So we walked a different way to try and throw him off before going back to our mum. As you may imagine, this was extremely alarming to us, particularly because we were in a foreign country. Our friend who owned the pub offered to call the police on the guy, since he was still obviously loitering around the corner. My mum, though, had a different approach. She was a formidable woman who didn't take any nonsense and was fiercely protective of her daughters. If someone like a Karen tried to start an argument with her, as once happened on a flight, they would quickly regret it because she always won. She once quit her job after one too many insults from her boss, knowing her boss couldn't function without her and would come begging her to come back, and she was right. So my mum decided to stalk this strange man back. My sister and I decided to follow along because it sounded intriguing. We watched as he tried to hide behind trees. It did not work, and eventually got so uncomfortable with my mum's relentless pursuit that he fled across the main road, and she pursued him even then until he was finally gone from our sights. That is amazing. I mean, this is just brilliant. It's absolutely comical in my mind. I just want to see this happen. This has to be turned into some sort of skit or something, or some sort of episode on a comedy show. I mean, it's just so good. What a great way to just completely unnerve someone and hopefully make this man realize that what he's doing is so creepy. I mean, it is also illegal, but just mainly just so weird. What is going on? Your mum, by the way? Absolutely legendary. I hope she haunts this man for a very long time. And to be honest, I mean, might as well keep up the stalking. It's so funny. Deceased father's girlfriend is going down. So this will be a developing story over the next few months. Just getting started. My father passed away 3 weeks ago. He was a hard worker, into real estate and a man of means. He has 7 properties, 5 cars and liquid cash. His girlfriend that chased him down 9 years ago was his carer until death. In the last 2 to 3 years, she began to isolate my father from his 4 kids. She'd attempt to keep us out of the home and stand at the door and say he was sick. We would push our way in and he never rejected us. I think we all know what she's trying to do here. November 4th last year, I went out of the blue to his house and he was lying there dying. I took a video. He was septic and wouldn't have made it through the night if I hadn't found him. I sent him to the hospital. He went back again a week later and was placed on hospice. This female dog, I've since found out, deleted my number from his phone. She then got him a new phone about 2 weeks before he died to confuse him so he wouldn't know how to use it. He asked my siblings and son for my number 3 times to call me before death, and he never called. Oh my gosh. I suspect that she kept him from calling. I must fill in this blank. She drove a wedge between us and talked to me like a dog from November to December when I went no contact. I sent a letter expressing my hurt and that I loved him. She presented an electronic will, leaving her everything. Now, e-wills are not valid in my state. She sent a text from his phone to hers back in January stating that he was leaving her 2 homes. It was in broken English, so I know it was her. Dad doesn't even text, he didn't know how. So, she is losing everything. Her car, the house they shared, everything. I'm even thinking of suing her for mental and emotional abuse of my dad. The car he bought for her is in his name. That's gone. Oh, and she also ranted over his casket at his children and grandchildren, all on video. I'm going to ruin her. Wow. Also, a quick update. We're getting temporary orders of administration over the estate and filing eviction tomorrow. And we confiscate vehicles this Sunday with sheriff escort. Winning. Well, that is amazing to hear. Wow. I mean, the ending for that is great. That is great to see that she's, losing everything. It's just a terrible, terrible case, isn't it? It's a terrible story. Ultimately, though, I do feel like, is there not some form of like attempted murder charge here that you could be going for? I know you probably don't want to do this, and it's horribly morbid, and it's so sad and just very, very, distressing for you and the family. But if you found your dad pretty much dying in front of you, well, you said dying, like he was septic, and it's because of her lack of looking after him, that's the reason why he's in that position, it has to be, then is there not a charge or a potential case for attempted murder there? I don't know. What you've got so far, the temporary orders of administration over the estate, the fact that she's going to be in a much worse place after your dad's death than she was before, despite the fact that, yeah, she clearly was just going for all his money and property in the first place. I think there's more you could do here. I don't know, it's up to you, but I do feel like there's more that could be done. Let me know in the comments down below. Is attempted murder not on the cards here? I'm not sure, let me know. Annoying middle school attendance lady. Years ago, I called the middle school attendance office to have my 2 boys sent to the office so I could take them out of school for a family emergency. The attendance lady was not happy about this and went on a rant about how I should have sent a note with them a day or 2 in advance, and then she would have had them in the office. Now she has to send a student to each of their rooms to get them, and this could take 30 minutes. It's a very old building with no intercoms to each room. Sir, do you understand what an inconvenience it is for me to stop my students from doing an assigned task and have them go and get your children? I was trying to interject, but she wasn't having it. She continued on and on about how all of the protocols are in the student handbook if I would have just taken the time to read it at the beginning of the year. She then finally stopped long enough for me to speak. Mom, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry I didn't send a note with the boys. Now, unfortunately, their grandfather didn't give me advance notice that he was going to have a heart attack this morning. The surgeon performing his open heart surgery didn't give us any advance notice either. We have to leave town immediately. The stuttering and awkwardness was amazing. Honestly, it was hysterical and a great stress reducer while he was in surgery. My dad loves that story. Oh, so he survived. That is even better. Yeah, the word that springs to mind here is just job's worth. As I said, I'm very happy that your granddad wasn't actually dead. I thought he was, and then I thought it was going to be an extremely sarcastic response from your dad. Something along the lines of, well, unfortunately, we didn't get advance notice that my dad was about to die, but at least he's still alive, and hopefully he could even laugh at this story. Absolutely insane. I mean, is it that hard to go and get students out of a classroom? Also, just send an email. That's what we did at my school. The teachers got an email and they were on their computers anyway. Or yeah, just send a kid around to go and get them. It's not that hard. And in familial emergencies like this, obviously it has to be done. You just haven't had the right D yet. So, I, a 19-year-old woman, only date femme folks. Sexual tastes are a bit broader. Much to the support of most of my family and all of my friends. The friends of my friends, not so much. One of those friends, unfortunately, had a Klingon in their circle. A jerk we'll call Bill. Bill has certain views on relationships and women, and is not very happy with queer people. He likes to make small comments on the fact that I only date women, and even more so, that I'm dating 2 people. Oh, the horror. And only one is a woman, the other being a femboy. Now, he got a bit drunk one night, and his comments were getting a little bit aggressive. I was cuddling with one of my partners and exchanging small kisses, but eventually he said 2 things that everyone should hate. The classic of, you just haven't had the right D yet, as well as a new one I'd never heard. You just need to try it once. I volunteer. Oh my gosh. My partner tries to stop me because she could see I was getting mad, but it was too late. Someone told me that once, I said. Then he R-worded me so I could try it once. Now I can't trust anyone who presents masculine, like you. He got very defensive over this, acting like I was accusing him of something and carrying on. He was promptly asked to leave by the friend he was connected to, and I haven't heard or seen him in 2 months. So, hurrah. Yeah, I mean, this one is just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Who in their right mind would ever say something like this? It's just insane. What are you supposed to even do in response to this? I mean, you didn't have to say what you did, but I'm kind of thankful that you did. Although, it doesn't even seem like he learned from that. He just, as you say, got defensive and then carried on. So really, I mean, did he actually learn from that at all? Probably not. Which is just mad, but yeah, crazy. Although, I guess if you haven't seen him in 2 months, that is a good thing. But it shouldn't take you having to say something like this to him for him to not be around anymore. Also, I mean, your friend who is his friend who brought him in the first place, surely should have realized he's just a creepy guy. I mean, like, unless he's just not a good friend in the first place, you should expect your friends to have good friends, I reckon. I mean, it's not up to you, but if they are in your same or similar circles, you can't be expecting someone like this to be knocking about. I mean, it's just disgraceful. I mean, you could also argue that, you know, how does Bill not know that he's gay? He just needs a good big D, for want of a better phrase, and it'll magically change him. Has he tried it? No? How can he possibly know? Customer asks, I have cancer. What's wrong with you? So I put my wig on the counter. Back during the mask mandate, I worked in one of the big brand jewelry stores commonly found in shopping malls. On this boring day, it was only me and my assistant manager, we'll call her Lisa, working. In the afternoon, a man, probably in his mid-30s, comes into the store. I do my usual greeting and get ready to work with him when Lisa clears her throat and pulls on her mask a bit. I didn't even realize that the man wasn't wearing a face covering, so I politely offer him a mask so I can help him. Of course, he goes on a rant, saying he knows his rights and the usual mumbo-jumbo we've all heard. I tell him, I'm sorry, but I have a weak immune system and I can't risk getting sick. This earns me a grunt and him snapping at me, I have cancer. What's wrong with you? I give him no answer and take my wig off and drop it on the counter in front of me. He sputters and tries to apologize, saying he didn't know. He then decides to tell my co-worker and me, both early 20s females, about his testicular cancer, talking way too much about his naughty bits for our liking. I guess that was his way of trying to diffuse the awkwardness and shame. I've walked to the other side of the store and my co-worker dealt with him. At some point, I heard him say to her, I'd asked what kind of cancer she has, but... Now Lisa and I share a knowing look. I never actually said I had cancer. My hair fell out when I was a kid and never grew back. That's all it is. No sickness, just my immune system being stupid. Oh wow. Eventually he buys an engagement ring and scurries away. I've honestly never seen a customer walk out so fast-paced. Lisa and I crack up laughing once we thought he was out of hearing range before going back to being bored on a slow day. That is actually phenomenal. I mean, it's a great thing that you don't have cancer, but also the fact that you slightly inferred that you did while not actually saying that you did, and him thinking, oh my god, what have I done, is so good as well. I think just to clarify what I mean here, I mean like it's a good thing that you don't have cancer. I mean, that's obviously a flat good thing, but I think it's also a good thing that you made him think that you did have cancer, despite the fact that you didn't lie about having cancer, which would have been weird. Him thinking that you have cancer, I think is a good thing and should, in theory, although I've said this with like everyone else in this video really, should in theory make him think twice about doing something similar in the future. But I don't know, guys. I mean, I'm just looking through this again. Does he, like, he scurries away and is obviously embarrassed. Will he do something like this in the future? I don't know. I also kind of do feel a bit bad for him. Like, if he has cancer, then it's just a terrible thing to have, obviously. So let's cut him a little bit of slack. He's probably going through a lot right now, but it doesn't excuse, you know, being really rude. And it also doesn't excuse not wearing a mask. I mean, surely you can still wear a mask when you have cancer. If anything, wouldn't you still want to have a mask on? I mean, more than ever, so you don't get, you know, you're not at risk of getting an infection which would make your immune system even weaker, right? Your friendly neighborhood cripple is back. This just happened today and I'm still giddy with glee. Hello, I'm your friendly neighborhood cripple. For those of you just joining us, I, a 50-year-old woman, am paralyzed from the bra band down due to a catastrophic illness. It's been almost 10 years since I was paralyzed, and I have tons of stories which I share here for your enjoyment. To mitigate my disability and help me get around in the world, I have a power wheelchair and a service dog. I'm not exaggerating at all when I say the trash that comes my way could fill a 3-month supply of my colostomy bags and then some. For our newcomers, I am the way I am as I grew up in a suburb of NYC, was bullied constantly my entire school life, and grew up with an older brother. He and his friends made my life a living heck until I honed my sarcasm, sharpened my tongue, and learned to think quickly to give as good as I got. Usually, I ended up turning it around and making it worse for the person who insulted me. In addition to all of this, my husband and I recently moved from our lovely New York adjacent suburb to North Carolina. It's a lower cost of living, I still get excellent medical care, we've got a house that's fully accessible in a lovely neighborhood, etc. People here say things to you in a sickly sweet or very kind voice, but what sounds like a compliment is often an insult. Now that you're all caught up, on to the story. Today we went to Costco. My hair is a gorgeous dark purple, and as my service dog Cap and I are wheeling around, I see a shirt I like. I go to look at said shirt. It was one of those super soft casual cuts in an amazing shade of green. A younger woman, maybe mid-30s, looks at me and nods politely. I smile and nod back and begin checking out the shirt that caught my eye. She's next to me, also checking out the shirt, just in a different colour. She says to me, "You are so brave to have purple hair. I could never do something like that." In that, "Oh, bless your heart" tone. "Oh, no," I replied. "What's brave is a woman your age wearing that." A vague gesture to her clothes. What's wrong with it?" "Well, those jeans are definitely a choice. Plus, open-toed shoes when your feet look like that? I wish I had half your confidence. You'll have a great day." At that point, I decided against the shirt, since the shade of green made me look like a shade of corpse that was just not flattering. Not that any shade of corpse is flattering, but this was the least flattering shade of corpse I'd ever seen. Cap and I zoomed off to find my lost husband, leaving her to stare at her perfectly nice jeans and perfectly normal feet in perfectly normal open-toed shoes. I wonder what the frick was wrong with them. And probably wonder why a woman in her mid-30s shouldn't be wearing perfectly nice jeans with a perfectly nice sweater and perfectly normal open-toed shoes. I'll be living rent-free in her head for a long, long time. Until next time, because there's always a next time. Your friendly neighborhood cripple. Now, just some more info to add. Several people have raised the question if she was actually complimenting me. Sadly, friends, she wasn't. Her tone of voice was the one reserved for very stupid dogs, very stupid husbands, or very ugly babies. That saccharine, false sweet tone that indicates disdain behind what would otherwise be complimentary words. Like calling your dog brilliant because they startled themselves awake by farting and give their butter look like it betrayed them. Now, I am guilty of that last one. Peggy does it regularly. And everyone, it's hilarious. Yeah, that is fair enough. I was kind of thinking, are you sure she's not actually complimenting you? But I guess when you're in real life, when you hear the tone, you would know if someone's being sarcastic. All right, guys, let me know in the comments down below, because this is the first time I've ever come across this user. And I've got to say, from the style of writing and just the general tone, I love this person. And I want to read more stories from them about similar sort of things that have happened. I can't quite believe I've not seen a story from OP before, but I don't think I have. Comment down below, do you want to see more from this user? Because I reckon, I've not had a look, but I reckon they've got loads and loads of posts that are probably equally as funny as this one. I mean, on this one, just well done. Well done. It's an unnecessary comment from anyone to ever comment on someone else's appearance or style when they're just strangers. So yeah, you just shut her up instantly. It sounded like you just clapped back right away. And you're so right. It makes it better that she's wearing normal stuff that probably looks pretty nice, because now she's going to be second guessing probably her entire wardrobe and thinking, oh my God, what did she see? What can I not see? Why did she say this about my jeans when they're actually completely normal? It's so good. As you said, great phrase, rent-free. Grab my booty, have fun blowing your nose. This one happened just an hour ago. I'm still shaking a bit, but dang am I proud of myself. I was at the Wall of Marts, my first mistake, and I was bent over looking at craft stuff. This random man, late 30s, early 40s, decided it would be a great idea to grab a fistful of my butts. Of course, the dude does not know I'm a martial artist, so I was very surprised when I rabbit punched him square in the nose. He grabs his face and starts cussing me out. I cock my fist back and shout, and I'll do it again. He scurried off, still cussing up a storm. No, I didn't contact the police. Not my first rodeo, so I know they wouldn't do anything. I did tell a manager I'm familiar with what happened, so they could keep an eye out. Why am I so proud of myself? I didn't cry. I even finished my errands before coming home. I was not going to let a random jerk ruin my day. And there we go. If you weren't sure what r/TraumatizeThemBack was all about, well, now you know. This is brilliant. He assaulted you first. You get to do whatever you want to him afterwards, in my opinion. Yeah, I know, like, legally you assaulted him back, but is that not self-defense of some sort? I mean, he can't get away with this, and now he's not going to do it again because of you. So you've done amazingly for yourself and for other women that this would probably have happened to in the future. Amazing. How a PE teacher put my sister in the hospital. So this is about my older sister, who I'll be calling Jane for this post. Now, Jane has asthma. She's had it ever since she was a baby and gets it pretty badly. We've had to spend more than one Christmas in the hospital because she had pneumonia, and the school was very well aware that she has asthma. She always had an inhaler on her, and the front office had a nebulizer for emergencies. And there were multiple doctor notes on file limiting what she could do. She couldn't play a wind instrument in band class. She was allowed to not sing in choir if she was having trouble, and if teachers ever took students outside while the weather was bad, she was allowed to opt out. She was in middle school when this happened, and all of the teachers got the memo except for the PE teacher. Not only did this female dog not believe that Jane had asthma, but she also didn't believe that asthma was real. She thought it was just something that kids come up with so they don't have to exercise. What? Alright, I've got to interject here, guys. Now, I would typically say that I cannot believe this, right? This seems unbelievable that a PE teacher, a qualified PE teacher, thinks that asthma isn't real. But maybe there genuinely are PE teachers out there that just love fitness and exercise so much to the extent that they think that any kid that says they have asthma is actually just making it up. So I guess I'm not saying that this woman necessarily thinks that asthma doesn't exist or hasn't been trained to know what asthma is, but maybe she just thinks it's an excuse that kids always use. Okay, let's get back to the story. This caused a few problems, and Jane had been sent to the principal's office more than once for trying to opt out of gym class. She wouldn't get in trouble, but being reprimanded in front of the entire class and getting sent to the office is mortifying for a middle schooler, and she was sick of it. Our story takes place in the middle of winter, just before winter break. We live in a cold climate, and our winters get wet and cold, neither of which are great for asthmatic lungs. On this day, the teacher had them running the mile, but instead of having them run laps in the gym, she insisted they go outside, and kids would get in trouble for taking their coats because they had to be in uniform. Jane tells the teacher she can't run outside in this weather, and the teacher tells her that if she refuses to run, then she'll be sent to the office. Now, if you remember, middle schoolers' sense of self-preservation is non-existent, and Jane has balls so big that they impair her walking, so she decided enough was enough. This school had a track that was a quarter-mile long, but for whatever reason, the teachers never had kids run the mile on it. Instead, they had the kids run around the block that the school was on twice, while the teacher stood at the starting point with a stopwatch. What Jane knew, and the teacher didn't, was that at the same time Jane had gym class, our mum would go to kindergarten to pick up our younger sister. She'd seen Jane running the mile on nice days earlier in the year, and gave her a little honk and a wave. So imagine, if you will, my mother, a CNA, going to pick up her baby, only to spot her eldest daughter running around outside with no coat on in the middle of winter, struggling not to slip on ice in certain spots. Mum was annoyed. She pulled up next to Jane to ask what the heck she was doing, and Jane told her through chattering teeth that the teacher was forcing her to run the mile outside with the other girls. Mum told Jane to get into the car and drove around to the front entrance to rush her into the office, demanding they call an ambulance and get her a nebulizer for a breathing treatment and something to warm her up and get her circulation back, as she was literally turning blue. Jane was hospitalized. The school had to pay for the ambulance ride, pay for the nebulizer medication, and pay for the hospital stay. Mum chewed out the principal and the teacher, then the doctor did the same. The teacher was suspended and put under review, but for whatever reason, she didn't get fired. However, she did learn not to ignore doctor's notes in kids' files, and there wasn't another incident like that in the 12 years it took for all of our siblings to finish middle school. And Jane continues to have the largest balls I've ever seen. Why is it always PE teachers, guys? That's my question. You just hear about them a lot. Everyone's had one bad PE teacher who just forces kids to do things that they don't want to do, just for no real reason. And I feel like I've seen at least 2 or 3 stories like this, or similar to this, over the years. Now, yes, not necessarily have they had this level of revenge, which was excellent to see. But, you know, on like Entitled Parents or Entitled People, you hear about teachers like this, PE teachers to be precise. It's pretty crazy that she wasn't fired, by the way. Like you've said at the end there that she did learn not to ignore doctor's notes in kids' files. Is that not the #1 thing to like do as any teacher, is read those files and know exactly what is in them? Surely. Like, yes, the point is to educate, but first and foremost, it's to keep the child alive, isn't it? Like, when they're in your company, you are their carer. That's insane. But yeah, shout out Jane for saying, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm just not doing this again. And shout out to your mum as well. You've lost weight. You look great. Slight backstory. About 7 years ago, I was forcibly moved out by my father. And after my mother tried to guilt trip me into dropping the associated court case, we went no contact for a while. She and I are on good terms now, but it took a while for us to get comfortable meeting up again. And this interaction occurred during our first meetup after that point. Because of how much this had affected my life, I'd been between jobs for a while and was severely struggling with the poverty of very abruptly having to fend for myself on top of the mental issues caused by the incident. Suffice to say, I was really struggling to have regular meals and was definitely not at 100%. It had been close to a year since she'd last seen me, and due to this intense poverty, I'd naturally lost close to 30 kilograms, 66 pounds, since then. I was slightly overweight before and was now just slightly underweight. Don't worry, I wasn't skin and bones. My mum was trying to be friendly, and I'm sure she did sincerely mean it as a compliment when she said, "You've lost weight, you look great," as she's also struggled with her weight a bit. However, I was still quite bitter and uncomfortable with seeing her again after the stance she took, and it wasn't exactly intentional weight loss. So I looked her in the eyes and said, "Thank you. It's from the malnutrition since I can't afford to eat properly." Guys, she went frickin' silent. I don't think she looked me in the eye for the rest of the meetup. I would never be so bluntly rude to her now since we're on good terms, but she really needed the reminder of how bad my life had become because of the incident. At least she bought me a F ton of groceries afterwards because of it, so I had some proper food again for a while. Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing, I guess, but she can't just like buy some groceries for you in the short term and that makes up for everything that's happened in the long term. I don't know what the incident was. Obviously, we don't know what forcibly moved out by your father means, but yeah, depending on the age this was or what happened, I mean, who knows if it's legal or not, but yeah, losing close to 30 kilograms by not being able to get, the sufficient food that you need, whether that's the quantity or quality, whatever, or other stuff, from the emotional abuse perhaps of what happened. 30 kilograms is nuts, given you were slightly overweight before. Wow. Like, it's not as if you were, 200 kg and lost 30 and you're still overweight. Yeah, mental. But I'm glad that she now probably realizes what has happened to you, but then surely she should have realized that anyway. Shouting, "I'm 15, you pedo," at every guy who harasses me on behalf of younger me. I just found this sub and wow, I love it. I thought I'd share something I've been doing for a few years, which I think this sub will appreciate. I used to get harassed as a young teen, a heck of a lot, because I dressed alts, and therefore men think you're not a person, but a walking goth sex doll. I also worked in the biggest alt market in my city, and we would get so many guys in there just to harass young girls or try to manipulate them. I would try to be a cool aunt figure to these girls and guide them, showing them self-defense, etc. But honestly, the problem seemed to be getting worse and worse. One day, after I'd had to deal with a 14-year-old crying on me because a stranger said he was gonna finish in her hair, I was walking home from work and some guy started shouting the exact same thing at me. Now, I'm pretty lucky in that I don't look much older than I did at 14 or 15. People already said I looked 18. And in that moment, I had a wonderful idea. I turned around and screamed, "I'm 15, you freaking pedo." The friend I was with got the memo and joined in screaming pedo at them. At that point, we'd been walking through the busiest square in the city. Pretty soon, other people started paying attention to what we were screaming and joined in, till there must have been 20 plus people shouting at the guy with easily 200 others staring. I've never seen someone poop it so quick. It was absolutely hilarious to see him go from feeling so big and powerful to so scared so quickly. He legged it off and dived into a taxi, clearly scared that if he stayed, an angry mob would form around him. It was brilliant. I still do it to this day when I get harassed, if there's enough people around for it to work, and some of my friends have joined in too. Hopefully before too long, the message will spread around them and they'll all become too scared to harass anyone. Well, you know what, OP? I actually think you're doing the right thing here. Yes, obviously they're not pedos because you're over the age of 18, but they don't know how old you are. So yeah, they're running away because they have no idea. And for all they know, you could be under the age of 18. And what if you were under the age of 18 but didn't say anything? It'd be terrible. So yeah, again, kind of like the first story, you've stopped this person from doing this again in the future. So yes, although you're telling a white lie, it's for the good of humanity. Have you ever sucked a D? There was a guy in my small animal care class back in high school who would always ask questions about my asexuality in a condescending tone. You know the ones. How do you know you're asexual if you've never had sex? Are you sure you just haven't met the one yet? How can you be dating, insert my partner's name here, without sex? So you're just fine with being a virgin forever? Almost every day while I sat with our class chickens, I was interviewed on what I do with my parts. His favorite of the questions was, how can you be so sure you're asexual if you haven't had sex? I tried to explain to him multiple times that I didn't need to have sex to know that I was asexual, that it's a thing you feel, or in our case, don't feel, like how someone would know how they felt about being with men versus women, or anyone in between. I used all the analogies I could think of, and he just wouldn't stop. One day, I had enough. Without thinking, I yelled, have you ever sucked a D, Mike? I've never seen any person so shocked, like he'd just been told something that would forever change his trajectory of life. What? Have you ever had homosexual intercourse with a male? No. Well, then how can you be sure you're straight then? Huh, Mike? Stammering, he repeatedly insisted it was because he felt such a strong attraction to ladies that there was no possible way he could be gay. Every single time, though, I asked him again how he was so sure. Struggling not to laugh, my friend was trying to get me to lower my voice. Look, Mike, now the chickens are scared. You made me scare the chickens. Get back to me when you've sucked a D, Michael. Naturally, I got in trouble, but my teacher was chill and it was nothing more than a good scolding and a 2-week ban from sitting with the chickens. I honestly think I should have gotten in more trouble. I should have controlled my temper. Well, there's no going back in time, I guess. For the remaining 2 months that we shared class together, he never asked me how I could be so confidently asexual. Maybe he learned something that day. Maybe he was scared of incurring my wrath once again. We may never know. I still haven't gotten any word that he sucked a D yet, though. All right, and here is some chicken tax up on screen right now. I don't think I've ever seen chicken tax before on Reddit, but I will say the chickens look pretty lovely, especially like the white one. Is that racist? It wasn't meant to be, and it obviously isn't, but I just think the white one looks cute. Not that the black one doesn't. Could this stay in? Yes, because it's not racist. It's just unfortunate that I've said that. There we go, guys. I hope you don't take offense to that. It's just a joke. Well, it's not a joke. I mean it. I thought the white one looks cool. Anyway, yeah, let's just move on. Tell the entire class about my depression while I'm in the mental hospital. Hope you don't mind me emailing the entire staff about your AA meetings. I have severe clinical depression, and I've been struggling with it for years. The teachers are always made aware of my hospital admissions, so they can be more lenient on late work after I get back, which I've never really had a problem with. Now, there was this maths teacher I had, let's call her Mrs. R. My dad is a recovering alcoholic and goes to AA regularly, which I'm very proud of him for. When he went to a parent-teacher conference with her for the first time, he told me in the car that he remembered her from AA and was surprised she got a job since she relapsed constantly. Now, I didn't care much about it since everyone has their problems and just decided to forget about him saying it. Now, I had to be hospitalized due to an unalive attempt. It was for about 3 weeks, and during that time, I was doing math work to keep up with her class. When I came back, I realized that everyone acted very off when they talked to me. I was fairly confused, so I asked one of my friends what happened when I was gone. Apparently, a kid had openly asked why I was gone for most of the year, without any repercussions, and Mrs. R decided it was appropriate to go on a rant about how I was depressed and mentally ill, and that she hated how I was coddled by the school board. She also stated that if I was her child, she would beat the depression out of me. I was royally annoyed at the fact that she did that and thought it was a good thing to do to a kid that at that point was in middle school and was being bullied left and right. In a rage, I sent a mass email to the staff, stating that she was seen in AA and how uncomfortable I felt with an alcoholic teaching me stuff. Following this, she was terminated because not even the administration knew about her addiction and thought that it wasn't safe for her to be around children. Now, just want to make sure, OP, that you saying following this she was terminated, does that mean she was shot and killed? I hope it does. I fear it doesn't, but yeah, I feel like that is the only reasonable outcome here, is that she was shot on sight. Because the things that she's doing here are a disgrace, and yeah, it's kind of weird that her school wouldn't know about her alcoholism and her alcoholic past, but maybe she just hid it. I mean, that's, I'm sure, what happened, which is crazy to be an alcoholic that isn't recovered and is still, well, relapsing constantly, according to your dad. But yeah, having that person around children is crazy. Yeah, you did the right thing once again. To be honest, it doesn't really matter that she is an alcoholic or goes to AA meetings or relapses, whatever. Like, the fact that she's disclosing this to her class, your classmates, and then saying all this stuff that she said. Like, it is absolutely ridiculous. She hated how you were coddled by the school board, and that if you were her child, she would beat the depression out of you. That's absolutely insane. For that reason alone, she should obviously not be in education. Ignore my medical issues and I get angry. When I was in high school, my doctor accidentally let slip that I'd been formally diagnosed with ADHD 4 years beforehand. My parents hadn't wanted me to use it as a crutch, so they just hadn't told me. I was furious and I immediately pressed to start medication and get education accommodations. My parents sort of sheepishly agreed to everything I asked for, and I started doing well for the first time ever. This is all background info. Well, I've got to say off the bat, that is some of the worst parenting I've ever heard. What on earth? Anyway, we moved and I was taking a freshman science class in my sophomore year because my old school had done what was effectively the sophomore science in my freshman year. I'm the 16-year-old new kid doing standardized testing with a classroom of freshmen I don't know super well. And suddenly, I have to go to the bathroom. My education accommodations allowed for bathroom breaks whenever because the medication I was on at the time included fun side effects like bladder control issues. I raised my hand and I asked a substitute teacher who was acting as our test proctor while our normal science teacher was on vacation. And she laughed at me. She said she wasn't born yesterday and no amount of accommodations would convince her to let me leave the classroom during standardized testing because I might meet up with a friend who had answers to the tests or something. I tried to argue with her and I got increasingly more desperate as I explained in hushed whispers what my medication did and its side effects. She continued chuckling and shaking her head with this stupid, bemused smile. I started crying before, wouldn't you know it, I peed myself. Honestly, the next bits are a blur. I remember the smile slowly falling off her face, and then suddenly I was in the nurse's office wearing gym clothes and listening to my parents scream at the principal in 2 different languages. My parents agreed not to sue if that substitute was fired. She wasn't able to get a job at another school in the area, and the district apparently brought separate charges against her for ignoring accommodations. She had to pay a steep fine. Now, thankfully, some popular kids decided that anyone who made fun of me about this wouldn't be invited to the cool kid house parties, so I was only teased a little bit. I still wasn't popular in high school, but at least my parents became somewhat more supportive of me and my educational needs as a result. I hope that lady enjoys her unemployment as much as I enjoyed watching someone sign my yearbook a few years later to P-Girl. Okay, well, at least your parents eventually did something that constituted good parenting, but I hope they realized their errors in the first place of not telling you about a serious medical condition that you have that obviously is going to impact your ability to learn. Maybe this happened a long time ago when things like ADHD weren't as understood or accepted, but if it didn't and they genuinely didn't want you to use it as a crutch and just learn to live with it, I guess, despite knowing the impact it can have on you, or it does have on you day to day, then that is awful. But yeah, okay, maybe they've now changed their ways, and as we can see by the end, they do care about you. I mean, yeah, just that first paragraph was shocking to me. Now, as for the teacher, I mean, yeah, she's just a complete write-off. What a horrible woman. To actually laugh at you while you are telling her, no, I promise you, this is not me trying to cheat or get out of the test or anything like that. Look at my docs. I mean, surely she has them on her system or something. Look at them. I'm on this medication because of my condition. Like, how can somebody who's a teacher laugh at you in that spot? It's just ridiculous. It's a good thing they got rid of her, no doubt about that. It's a shame that you didn't get the money though, as you know, you didn't sue, and she was forced to pay a fine to I don't know, the school, the district, whatever, not you. I feel like you deserve some compensation for such a horrible thing, and fair play to the kids as well for not bullying you about this. It would be very easy to do so. Not saying that they should, but I mean, if bullies are looking for a reason to bully, that's a pretty good one. So fair play to the kids for not doing that. But yeah, I'm sure this moment is going to stay with you and be pretty traumatic for your life. And yeah, I can't imagine what being in school and everyone knowing that you'd gone through that would be like. Now for our second story. This one is brilliant. Steal my mail, have fun thinking you're cursed. I hadn't thought of this in years until my daughter brought it up and suggested I post it here. I'm looking behind us now, across the count of time, down the long hall into history back, Back in the before times, in the long ago, 2020, I'm talking about 2020. At the time, I was living in the Midwest and my daughter was living in the Pacific Northwest. She'd started getting into haunted dolls, and when lockdown happened, she picked up customizing porcelain dolls to keep herself occupied. I sent her a few old dolls I'd found at thrift shops, but when I called her to see what she was going to do with them, she told me she never got the package. That's when she told me that porch piracy had become a huge problem in the town. She said that it had always been an issue, but since lockdown had started, they'd gotten beyond blatant, and it was an almost guaranteed chance that you wouldn't get your packages unless the mail person directly handed it to you. It got to the point that the thieves would literally follow the mail truck and would be walking up to the porch to steal packages as the mail person was walking back to the sidewalk. This, as you can imagine, annoyed me on a personal level. If I was going to spend my own money sending something to my daughter for her to customize, I dang well wanted her to get it, not some random mook off the street. I told her I'd think about it and get back to her, as there was a doll I'd found that I thought would be perfect for a horror customization. Plus, I wanted to support my daughter with her art, so I wanted to commission this doll specifically. The other important factors that contributed to this situation are that I'm pagan. I love ancient fictional languages, and I absolutely love being able to screw with people that deserve it. I spent a few weeks mulling the situation over in the back of my mind, and I eventually hit on a solution that borrowed heavily from the satanic panic, which I'd lived through as a kid. Since I wasn't sure that she would actually get the package, I decided to send a backup doll that I'd found and planned on sending with the original doll, just in case the original doll got messed up in a way that couldn't be fixed. The doll had a cracked face, was missing an eye, had a faded, stained blue silk dress, and the hair was a snarled mess. I found a shoebox that fit the doll with a little room to spare, and I got to work. Everything I wrote is approximated because I was an idiot and didn't take a picture before I mailed the box off. Stupid of me. Oh, that is a shame. I would have loved to see this. Anyway, first I aged some printer paper with coffee, crumpled it up until it was soft, then cut out 6 squarish pieces. I created 2 sigils and drew them on 2 of the pieces. One small one where the sigil took up most of the paper, and one larger one where the sigil was in the center but had plenty of room around it to write other stuff. The sigils were based on the phrase "F off thief" and "This is not yours." I also used a Gallifreyan translator app and created a symbol that translated into "May you perpetually step on Legos barefoot in the dark." Now I believe that Gallifrey is the language used in Doctor Who. The 4th and 5th pieces of paper had random symbols drawn on them, including alchemical, astrological, symbols from some 70s metal albums, Led Zeppelin in specific, and random shapes that I doodled. The last one I used a Klingon translator and wrote out "F you effing F," both phonetically and in the actual Klingon alphabet in a spiral that filled up the entire piece. I took the larger piece with the "Not Yours" sigil in the middle and wrote phrases cursing them unto the 100th generation, accused them of preferring goats as sexual partners, etc. in Norse runes, angelic script, and 2 other languages I don't remember off the top of my head. Then I burned some of the edges and some small spots throughout the papers. God, imagine being a thief and looking at that, being like, oh my god, what have I done? Once I was done with that, I rolled the largest piece into a tube, tied it with black and red ribbons, used wax to seal it, and tied it to the doll's hands over her chest with black twine. I then wrapped 4 of the pieces around the arms and legs of the doll, and I sealed them with wax and stuck the last piece, the small sigil, over her face. I used a pentacle wax seal stamp to stick it to her forehead. I wrapped the doll in some ancient tissue paper that I found in my basement, and I put it in the shoebox. I added several red, black, grey and green quartz crystals, as well as some pinches of dried herbs and flowers from my altar supplies. I finished the whole thing off with a short note written on torn notebook paper that essentially said that I was grateful to get this cursed thing off of my hands, that I tried to seal the evil spirit possessing the doll as best I could, but I didn't guarantee it would work, and that it was the buyer's problem now. No refunds, no returns, and if the buyer died, it wasn't my fault. I went absolutely cheesy 80s horror movie with the note. It was completely histrionic and overblown. I figured that anyone sensible would think that this was a prank or a prop or some I'm so dark and spooky teenager trying too hard to be dark and spooky, but mostly I wanted to make my daughter laugh, or at least momentarily freak out whomever stole the box. Admittedly, I'd picked up this doll because it struck me as looking rather creepy to begin with, so all the set dressing fit the doll well. I wrapped the box in duct tape, then in brown grocery bag paper, added some more random symbols on the seams, and I mailed it off to my daughter. The aftermath. She said that she got the notification that the doll had gotten delivered, but that when she went to retrieve it, nothing was there. A few hours later, she was sitting in the living room when she heard a loud thump against the door and heard the sound of a vehicle speeding off down the hill. When she opened the door, she found a ripped open and hastily retaped box containing only two things: the doll, buried in what looked like 2 full canisters of molten salt. She thought that was odd, but forgot to ask about the salt when she texted me to let me know the doll had actually made it. We were talking about the doll last year when she asked me why I'd sent it in salt. I asked her what she was talking about, and after she described how the doll arrived, I told her how I'd actually packaged it up. She was kind of bummed that she didn't get to see it in all its ridiculous glory, but mentioned that they haven't had a problem with porch pirates since then. So, I guess the local porch pirates were so terrified of the curse that they might have unleashed on themselves that they've avoided this area since then. I genuinely thought the whole thing was so over the top and cheesy, it would be obvious it was fake. But whomever stole it the first time was so terrified that they had to drown the doll in salt to break the curse. I genuinely hope they step on Legos barefoot to this day. Well, there we go. I think that is the perfect story for this subreddit. Just absolutely genius. I'm kind of getting Mark Rober porch pirate vibes from this. But if anything, this is a level above. Because that, yes, it did put their face out there. And, you know, they obviously got covered in glitter and sparkles and stuff. But this is like genuinely people might be thinking here, these thieves, that they are cursed. And the fact that they've had to pour salt on the doll to try and, yeah, whatever, break the curse or whatever, is ridiculous. I mean, yeah, you can scare someone, or you can scare someone for the rest of their life thinking they're cursed. I think there are levels to this game. Crazy stuff. Brilliant. All I can say is it's absolutely brilliant. I feel like the only way you can level this up now even further is somehow find out who that thief was. I don't know if that's possible, but just really try. I mean, really try. Find out where they live, then go and put the doll back on their doorstep with another random note saying like, no, this is your doll now. You are cursed forever. And that will ensure that they truly are cursed, I guess, in their mind, right? Thinking about this for the rest of eternity. I think you just have to go that one step further if possible. Okay, now moving on to our third post from r/TraumatizeThemBack. No, I will not be watching that. Thanks. A few years back, when I worked at a fairly large grocery store, there was this stint when the same co-worker would find me during my break and whittle away my already precious 15 minutes talking about whatever TV show she was obsessed with at the time. Now, I'm not great at watching the shows I actually want to watch, but I'm equally bad at telling people no, so often our talks would end with her insisting I watch whatever show I'd already forgotten the name of, and me sheepishly answering, I'll put it on the list. Then, for like the space of a month, she got a bug up her butt about one show in particular, 13 Reasons Why. Now, most probably know what that is, but quick summary for those who lived under rocks like myself: a teenage girl uses her graphically depicted unaliving to get revenge on the people that hurt her in life. For the first time, I told her, no, not my type of show, which seemed to be her sleeper agent activation dedicated solely to making me watch this freaking show. Every day she'd bring it up and we'd have the exact same conversation. I would ask what it was again because I exercised it from my mind after the last conversation. She excitedly recounts the show and I tell her, no, still not interested, in increasingly firm ways. Finally, I get tired of this game one day and I cut her off in the middle of explaining the show for the millionth time. I put on my most chipper tone and I let loose. Oh my god, you know, you love this stuff so much. I should totally tell you about how I tried to unalive myself last year. It's got all the stuff you love. Assault, unaliving, abuse that I still go to therapy for. Oh, but I didn't try to unalive myself in a cool teen drama kind of way. I just tried to step in front of a train. Oh, I can tell you exactly what it feels like the moment you make the decision to end your life though. That's what you want, right? The more I went on, the paler she got. trying to cut in since I was being loud and pretty much the whole break room could hear. She tried to apologize and act sympathetic to my pain, but I just kept going, giving more and more of the worst details until my break alarm went off. Oh, gotta get going. Thanks for the show, Rec, but I don't think I'm gonna watch. Bye. Shockingly, she stopped talking to me after that, and I finally got to enjoy my breaks. Okay, don't get me wrong. I feel like if I watch a good show and there's nothing sort of massively triggering in it, and I really want someone to watch it, whether it be a colleague or a friend or whatever, I will say, have you started watching that yet? It's really, really good. Trust me. Have you watched it yet? Now, hopefully I wouldn't get annoying with that, but I would keep saying it, at least a couple of times, just to give someone a reminder if I thought they were really going to like it. Now, the difference is here with 13 Reasons Why, and I haven't watched it, I'm going to be honest, but I do know what it's about. That is a show that you probably wouldn't push onto somebody again and again and again. And I think after hearing, no, not my type of show, when you first explain it to somebody, you then probably wouldn't do it again. Now, I'm not saying that she should have known that you had this happen to you before, or you were in this sort of situation, but I feel like you probably get some sort of hint from someone saying, no, not my type of show, when it's a show about someone that has unalived themselves. Even still, even if it's not about them and they've had a history with this, if they just don't like that sort of stuff, then I feel like you back away after that one. But no, she just kept going and going and going. And the only way to stop her was saying what you said. By the way, what I'm saying is, if I recommended a movie to somebody and they said, oh yeah, I'll watch it, then I might ask them again in future. Oh, have you watched it, by the way? You really should if you haven't. If they said, no, I'm not going to watch that one, not my sort of movie, I would never recommend it again. That would just be weird, especially when it's a topic like this. Real proud of my comeback to an airplane Karen. I have relatively wide shoulders and was flying middle seat in economy. I was coming back from a work trip on a full flight from New Orleans to Atlanta, about 1.5 hours. About 5 minutes after takeoff, the aisle seat Karen was acting real restless, squirming and sighing and rolling her eyes and scoffing. It was clear it was because I was using the armrest between us. I tried to make as much space as possible for her, but given my size and seat, I couldn't really do much. Then she snapped at me, going off about how nobody is impressed by your muscles. You take up way too much space. No one wants to deal with sitting next to meatheads like you. Blah, blah, blah. So I interrupted her little rant and very politely, but very loudly, replied with, Miss, why don't you simmer down? This is a short flight, and if there's one thing no one wants to deal with, it's a crying child on an airplane. Window seat and folks across the aisle burst out laughing. Karen was beat red and seething for the rest of the flights. Okay, well, there we go. I love seeing a Karen get beat down. You guys know this. Not physically, of course, but yeah, verbally. However, what I will say is this, and this is something that I think everyone should understand. Airplane protocol, seat protocol is it's such an inherent thing. If you're in the window seat, you have the window. And there is a whatever you call it. I'm doing the sign on the screen. But yeah, the armrest, the window armrest. You get. I can't remember if there is a window armrest. I believe there is. That's yours. If you're on the aisle, you get the aisle, right, which is better than the middle seat, and you get the aisle armrest. That's yours. And if you're in the middle, because you're in the middle, and that's obviously the worst seat, I think that you should therefore have dibs on both middle armrests. Simple as that. So if she's getting annoyed because you've got one of the middle armrests, or your right arm is on the, or whichever way, whichever side you're sitting on, you're taking one of her armrests in her opinion. I think she's just wrong. And yeah, just because you go to the gym, that doesn't mean that you have to give up an armrest. Just silly from her. But yeah, great comeback.